Good evening, free enterprise fans, the whole community at large, people who love randomizers, and folks looking for things to do on a Tuesday evening. My name is Tall Grant. It's my joy to welcome you to this race between Maggie-the-Cat and Nerukad, part of our Eblan Elixir League Potion Party. I'm here with Escrut, who is running our broadcast, Chuck Ultra, who is doing the button pushing, and the winner of the ZZ5 Red Moon tournament, and the man who never forgets to check with Grittia's mom, Rybon. Rybon, how you doing today?
Hey, Tall Grant, I'm doing great tonight. I'm looking forward very much to this race between Maggie-the-Cat and Nerukad, two player that I haven't had too much experience with, and I'm looking very much to see what they bring to the table, their ability to execute tonight.
Well, and I am too. It's really fun. I love tournament season because there's a lot of people who get kind of pulled out of the that off the sidelines and say, you know what, I want to put myself out there. I want to give this a shot. This looks like I'm having a lot of fun with this randomizer. Let's see what we can do with it. And I think we're going to have a really fun match for that tonight, especially because I see right in front of us the big old goggle eyes of Sid. How do you feel about having a Sid hero seed?
Sid is a fantastic hero, probably one of the better heroes that you could possibly find here on Potion Party. Not just because every single one of his super smiths is fantastic, whether it's a Gigantax, a Thor Hammer, a Flare Hammer. Also, just because he comes with a lot of early game power and the ability to manipulate his agility up and down, whether it's a Dwarfax, a Crystal Ring, or anything like that.
Well, the other thing I enjoy about Sid is there's a large versatility of weapons, and that he can use the axes. He does great with bows, and of course, bows have all those wonderful elemental arrows, mute arrows, a lot of things to help you troubleshoot problems in this Potion Party flag set, where you've got all these, we have several bosses to deal with that aren't free and may be tricky. Having just the right thing in your toolkit could be the right thing. And of course, as you mentioned, that Gigantax is really nice for Sid. It's even nicer if you can give it to someone like Cecil.
Yeah, absolutely. Or Kane.
Yeah.
Fantastic weapon, but Sid shines so much in the early game, starting off with about 720 HP. Guy the beefcake, can take hits for days, really make the early game very easy, very simple for our players. And especially with S Wild Chops on, you can find his best weapons, whether it's an Artie Bow and an assortment of arrows, or even a Rune Axe or an Ogre Axe, very early on. And I'm looking forward to our players being able to find that and execute with those particular weapons.
Well, and I can't wait to see, one of my favorite things to watch in this flag set is that early opening game where players go looking for money where they think there's the value. I think there's actually not a full consensus about the best way to do that, so it's going to be really interesting to see the choices they make here.
Yeah, the community still hasn't really coalesced around what they believe is the meta or what is the best routing. You'll see people land and bury it immediately, check that character, loot the town a little bit. Some go straight north to go to Watery Pass, some go south to Eblan, and we'll find out what our players are going to do tonight because we are off.
All right, well, let's see. Who do we have for a starting partner for Sid? Yang, interesting. And the unpleasant Mom Bomb, who is usually a big time sink, and a Rat Tail. Well, that's an interesting start. I don't necessarily like seeing that Mom Bomb just because the inflated hit points tends to make it not a terrible fight, but an obnoxiously long fight.
No, absolutely. Mom Bomb's not a great fight. Additionally, with the reduced XP that you get from that particular location, it can be a bit of a disappointment for our players. What do you think of that Yang partner starting off with?
To be honest, Yang can be great late in this flag set. He is not very fun early. Gear, more than almost anyone else in the game, gear does not benefit that Yang, other than getting him maybe some elemental claws to do it, but he just doesn't, he isn't quite cheated the way that Kane would be if you just popped an Avenger on him, or even that Sid would be if we got an Artie Bow for him.
Yeah, I agree entirely. That Yang, you can find, some of the best gear for him early game, whether it's a couple Cat Claw, the Power Shirt, Bandana, and he's still not going to be that functional or that effective early game. So I think this may be the Sid show starting off.
Well, I'll tell you what, Nerukad has decided to open to Damsian, which is not necessarily the most popular play, but he found 20k just sitting in a pot in the basement. That's actually a really, really good start out of Damsian. He's finding very good loot here. Maggie, in the meantime, has taken the more traditional let's go check Eblan approach and does some looting and finds the Mad Ogre chest over in, I believe, the right tower of Eblan.
So I like Nerukad's play here to open with Damsian. Is, as you mentioned, a less traditional play that we see on this flag set, but look at that final objective we have right there. Trade away the pigtail. I mean, we may very well need to launch his hovercraft eventually anyway. So you can do a little bit of looting and get that taken out of the way pretty quickly.
Well, and if that's not enough, the rat tail was the starting item too, so the odds of you having to turn at least one, if not both of them in, is pretty good. Maggie finds the second trap chest over in Eblan. Meanwhile, the hovercraft is raised over on Nerukad's side. Let's see if he heads over to Antlion Cave.
Looks like we're going to do a little more looting. Looks like Wapa, or Watery Pass, is going to be the play for Nerukad here, which I like. We're in the vicinity already, and you don't have to deal with all those trap chests that Maggie's running into right now, looting here.
Well, you do say that, but you are going to eventually have to make the trek over there just for the 3 trap chests. For those of you who are Free Enterprise viewers but may not have been familiarized with the tournament, K-Trap is turned on tonight. We have all of the trap chest locations on the blue planet, plus one on the giant and the lunar path in the pool. And with fairly good odds to have key items. I think a lot of people who first start playing K-Trap don't realize that they are weighted pretty close to the same that the K-main checks will be.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the location. The more trap chests in an area, the less likely they're actually in the key item pool. So locations with like 1, 2, or 3, specifically 1 or 3, because I don't think there's any locations with 2, are weighted pretty heavily. Definitely worth checking out sooner rather than later.
Maggie finishes up her work in Eblan and is on her way to check out Village Mist to see what is available for sale there. The Mist check is an interesting one. It's actually a shop that gets faded in a lot of standard checks just because it's a bit out of the way. And it also kind of pairs up with the Kaipo check. Meanwhile, we see Nerukad going to the backside of Watery Pass to get a little bit more cash. And I see a big fancy stick in the Mist weapon shop.
The big fancy stick is fantastic, but unfortunately not usable right now because we don't have the guy. But I do like what Maggie is picking up here, both a Thunder and an Ice Claw. Maybe trying to squeeze some effectiveness out of that young early game.
Well, I'm also interested in those crystal rings. Those are fantastic pieces of armor that are just about universally equipable. Nerukad decides that the time has come to try his luck up on Mount Hobbs, so I think we're going to see a save and then our first peek at a potential third character.
It looks like Yang is in bed over at Kaipo. I may have missed that earlier if Nerukad checked it. I don't believe so.
I don't think Nerukad's been to Kaipo, but...
Yeah, so it makes sense. Ultimately, that Sand Ruby is a dead check for us right now.
And we have, a very, very valuable Rydia guarded by the Antlion up on Hobbs. You want to talk a little bit why Rydia is such a big deal in this flag set?
That's wild. It's rearing its lovely head here, whether you want a Leviathan, a Bahamut. They're available in shops somewhere. They're a little pricey, but effectively it turns Rydia into one of the better characters on this particular flag set.
Nerukad looks like he is going to do everything in his power to avoid getting counters off of that Antlion. Meanwhile, Maggie is checking Mist Cave, presumably to make sure there's no vanilla D-Mist hanging around.
Very thorough on Maggie's part.
I honestly don't mind getting Ashura out of the pool. It's not necessarily the world's worst boss fight, but it can be time-consuming and obnoxious in the wrong place.
Well, I like Maggie's play here, doing quite a bit of shopping before actually beginning the seed, starting up on Hobbs or starting over in Antlion Cave. You looted, in this case, about, more than 65k because Maggie's already done some shopping, but that money needs to be converted into power to really make this early game go by a little smoother.
Well, and Troy is a fun place to shop due to the double item shop. There are the very valuable life potions, especially the longer that we go without finding a white mage. Which is, it's unlikely, but it's possible. And there's a Leviathan. We'll see if that gets remembered. It's not quite the power that Bahamut has, but Leviathan is a great substitute until you get there, and 40,000 is actually pretty reasonable in this flag set.
Yeah, Bahamut is effective all game, so the Leviathan, just as you mentioned, not as effective, but really good enough for like the first 30 minutes of the seed. It doesn't matter if you're going to be here on the overworld or even a few checks underground, that Leviathan is still going to do work.
Well, and you can see a little heads-up play going on over on Nerukad's side, making sure that he's got his Rydia up to get those first 7 or so levels she'll pick up off this check, presuming she makes it through the end of the Antlion fight.
Looks like Antlion has different ideas.
Well, he's just grumpy. He got exiled off the moon and he's stuck down here.
Yep, he climbed the mountain, got so close to the stars, but just didn't make it.
Well, Nerukad is through that, and he's going to go check a little bit more chest on the backside of Hobbs, and that 20 gold does not feel very good.
No, can't really spend it on too much. Can't even buy a carrot with it, which is a little unfortunate.
No, I'm just trying to think what on earth would be in there, what T-junk thing would have been placed in it that's worth 20 gold. I mean, we're talking spear level things.
Yeah, like it would cost 40 or 50 gold. Maybe it was a carrot. I'm not sure, and it rounded down.
MaggieTheKatt now following up to go up Hobbs. We'll see how she feels about seeing Rydia, and meanwhile, Nerukad is off to the next check in Fabul.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like the early Fabul play. It's a popular fade to see if you can do better going underground, and there is a Stardust Rod. Hello, that is a nice shot pickup.
And that Dwarf Axe as well. As we mentioned at the top of this, that's a great way to slow down Sid and speed up the remaining party members.
That's a fantastic buy for Nerukad, and that he's going to be very happy with that. Well, Antlion decides that he also does not like Rydia over on MaggieTheKatt's side.
I'm not sure. Did we see MaggieTheKatt pick up any better weapons for Sid? I don't believe we did.
No, it looks to me like he's using Silver Hammer. I mean, it's definitely a hammer of some sort, and I think the damage is a little high for what a wooden hammer would typically be here. But Maggie taking a little bit less cautious approach with the counters and just trusting in the beefiness of Sid to get through the fight, which, based on the pace he's going, shouldn't be. Yep, there it is, no problem.
So both of our racers getting through that Hobbs checked relatively early. I mean, we're well below 10 minutes right now, so good time for both. Maggie is equipped, however, with the knowledge of where that Leviathan summon is. Nerukad does have that Stardust Rod, which will, definitely work quite well for a few overworld checks, but he's almost certainly going to want to pick up a big beefy summon at some point.
Well, again, the hope is that you find that Bahamut. And Nerukad, I think, just looking at the cache, we talked about the loot being somewhat decent in Damcian and in the backside of Waterfall. It's not enough to fund that 65,000 gold purchase for the Stardust Rod and then pick up something big like Bahamut. And there is the Alt Gauntlet. And I would be upset if I was Nerukad's side. I would be upset, except that I have that Stardust Rod. That is going to be such a huge boon to getting through this fight. Of course, Yang showing that these imps are not really a huge problem as he kicks them down.
Yeah, the imp's not exactly an issue here. Great opportunity to use Thor Rage as well, if you didn't happen to have kick. Unfortunately for Nerukad, Rydia is really slow right now. May take a while to get around to her turn in order to get that Stardust Rod in time.
It'll get better as she levels, but it'd probably be even better if the in fact, you can see how she leveled here. The level popped up right in front of Sid, who is pretty slow with that Dwarf Axe on it now. And unfortunately, Rydia is being picked on pretty badly. I'm hoping that this isn't going to be a problem. The stone attacks off these cockatrices can be very obnoxious if you are a little bit too slow in the fight.
Yep. Luckily, the cockatrices do not use their stone attack unless there's only one remaining. So we're almost at that point, but not quite yet. I don't think we'll actually get there.
Well, and I'm trying to remember if the ultimate experience that the runners are going to get here out of this Fabul Gauntlet are going to be more than they would normally pick up in this spot.
Let's see. It's probably not, actually. That was 840 XP from that second fight. You normally get just around 5,000 XP for this location.
Yeah, so if we have 5 around that, will be a little bit less than that, which again is a little bit of a problem. One of Rydia's issues early on is that she may even get the big summons and know how to cast them, but not have sufficient mana to do it.
Nerukad's just having really bad luck here. Once again, Rydia getting sniped down by the enemies just before the Stardust Rod fire. But now we have a solo cockatrice. We may see some stone coming up.
I think Sid is hitting pretty hard. Well, Maggie following up on the shopping in Kaipo now. A couple of bombs make you feel like things were not properly cleaned up on top of Hobbs, at least vanilla Hobbs.
Unfortunately for Nerukad again, really getting sniped for the third fight in a row.
Well, our tracker pointing out that Maggie had a very heads-up play to go check the free summon on the entrance side of Mount Hobbs and picked up a Titan. That's actually very, very nice, and we'll get through several problems until you can afford to find something bigger. And meanwhile, we have Maggie on her way down to check out Cave Antlion.
Yeah, that might work out best for Maggie here. Doing Antlion, you're very unlikely to get the XP on Iridia that you need in order to be able to cast, you know, a Leviathan or a Blarg or anything like that. Well, so may be able to walk away from this with enough XP or MP for that Titan.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not sure Nerukad is going to have a problem getting through the All Gauntlet here. Sid is not really threatened by any of the stuff he's going to have left to fight here. It's just going to be slow, particularly because he's the only one alive and he has that Dwarf Axe on. And we have a Chocobo summon. Primarily, Iridia actually knows Titan over on Maggie's side, but does not have the MP to call it.
Yep. I mean, she grows up quick. I mean, kids grow up so quick these days. Nothing really to worry about there.
As father, little girl, you don't have to tell me twice.
I'll just tell you once.
That's okay. I've already taught her to do Anna's speech, so...
Wait, did you really?
Yeah, I did. Though instead of... I had her shouting encouragement at John Burkhead at the time, so she said it for Brick instead of for Edward.
John, fight John.
Brick, fight Brick.
Rock.
And a half of an objective rock too. And besides, everybody wants a rock to forge into a wonderful Sid weapon.
I mean, I believe that's a song, right? I Want a Rock?
That is a rock.
And
that is a rock engine song.
Adamant?
Well, what other rock could they have been talking about?
Maybe Igneous? I'm not sure.
There seems like there's a MaggieTheKatt reference in here that I'm missing.
Well, it would have been perfect then if that Fabul defense had our MaggieTheKatt, but it just had a life staff, I'm afraid.
Again, life staff's not a bad item if you have the right person for it, particularly because there is one other item it pairs with extremely well, and that's a heroine robe.
Yep, absolutely. You can turn a white mage into maintaining a white mage, but faster.
And I see something extremely valuable, and Maggie agrees with me. In the Mysidian shop, we have mute arrows. Although, now that we mention it, have we seen... Oh, there's, speaking of that heroine robe, right there.
I don't believe we picked one up on Maggie's side, however.
We picked up 2 black belts, but no heroine robe. You know, it's a... And there's Bahamut. I do not, at this point, the fact that Maggie held onto the money looks really smart.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that heroine robe. Bahamut is pretty essential. Okay, so we have a way to get through things and do some fun damage now. We can go wreck shop.
I think Nerukad will be retracing Maggie's steps, and we'll find his adamant down here. But where is Maggie going to go from here? While we do have Bahamut learn, I'm not sure if that Iridia has enough MP yet to be able to cast it.
No, I believe Bahamut is 60 MP, and I think Iridia is going to have to get through... I think you would have needed the full experience off both Hobbs and off of a normal Fabul to get there. I'm not even sure that the all-gauntlet Fabul would do it. Nerukad into the Antlion Cave, going to hopefully collect that adamant, but he is seeing those D-Lunars, and he wants to go ahead and let Iridia Stardust it down.
And it looks like Maggie has managed to find something very valuable for that Sid, an Elven Bow, and also spy some Artemis arrows for sale here in Agart. I don't think I had enough money for the Artie arrows yet, but definitely turns Sid into an absolute powerhouse, especially against dragons.
Well, you know, you say against dragons. There are certain dragons in a normal set. There are a few more dragons that those would be useful against. But I think one of the other fun things of this flag set is Eno experience is on. So a lot of the usual grinds against dragons, like eggs down in the underworld or gold dragons up on the moon, really are kind of pointless in this flag set.
Yeah, definitely. However, it still could come into use if, not in this case, but In a different seed, if there's an alt gauntlet up on the moon, you may encounter some of those fights again.
Yeah, you don't want to wish that on people. That is that's considered very impolite, Rybon.
Well, fortunately, we have already cleared our alt gauntlet, so that is not going to be happening to either of our runners tonight.
Well, speaking of bosses that where Argus arrows would be useful, there is a Pale Dim sitting here in the first check in Baron Inn. And again, this would be a very nice thing for Artie arrows. It's not high hit points here, so it'll still go pretty quickly, but again, those racial weaknesses can be a very big deal. Meanwhile, we have Nerukad making his way to double check and see the duplicate Yang in the bed at Kaipo. And we have the easier of the two Baron Inn fights down. Let's see what the unpleasantness here could be. Speaking of finding Yang.
We found him, and unfortunately, he's quite punchy here. This may be a bit of a challenge for Maggie.
Yeah, if this is going to be a damage race, it's actually going to be a little bit close here. I think Sid is tanky, and if he heals up enough, I think she can get through here, but this is not quite what I think what she wanted to see. The real boss has got Nerukad. The Kaipo lady has trapped him in the inn.
It looks like he fought his way out of that boss, however. So off to bigger and better things. Maggie's holding her own pretty well against this karate, though.
Well, that crit of a 588 from Sid was a pretty good shot on his part. But I believe, I'm trying to remember what arrows she had equipped on Sid. It might be mute arrows, I'm not 100% sure.
I believe that's correct. We should be seeing a combination right now of mute arrows and elven bow.
Gonna cut it a little close here.
Coming down to the wire. Oh,
and that's unfortunate. Yeah, that just a little bit punchier than I think Maggie was ready to handle in that fight, and I think the real kicker of that was having the unpleasantness against the Pale Dim at the front of it. I think if Rydia or Young are in better shape at the end of it, that fight goes a bit differently. So, well, Maggie's going to go on and try and decides now's the time to get levels, and we're going to go take some of the trap boxes and get Blarg up and running.
Yeah, I definitely like this play from Maggie. Sid, for example, with an elven bow, with his mute arrows, will make very quick work of any mad ogres, and I believe Maggie may have encountered them during her first trip up here, so may know.
In fact, I think this should be the box with them, if I recall correctly. Of course, this flag set starts off with a trap kit, which includes 3 hourglasses. And the party is going to get hit a little bit, but Sid should be more than tanky enough to survive long enough to drop the hourglass and freeze the ogres.
And the great thing about this play is that Maggie will be able to not only just get Rydia online, but that online Rydia will be able to cast Bahamut on the next 2, allowing Maggie to potentially save 2 hourglasses for future use.
Well, and I also recall seeing Maggie pick up a couple of ethers, so Maggie may not even need to exit out of here to do this fight. Meanwhile, Nerukad at Baron Inn gets through Pale Dim with all 3 characters up and goes on to face that Karate Man.
Well, we came in with all 3 characters up, but I think we may be down to 1 character again. This Karate does not pull his punches.
And Sid's hitting a little bit harder with that Dwarf Axe, but he's not as well armored, and I think that this may have to be a reset.
Yeah. So Karate 2 and our runner 0, but I don't think that score is going to hold.
Maggie doing a heads-up play with the Mad Ogres, dropping the life glitch. Of course, the developers gave all of the bosses all the enemies a vitality stat of 0 because there's no reason they need it. However, reviving an enemy is based on your vitality. So if you happen to revive these enemies who you kill, they will come back to life with 0 health and die a second time, and you can increase your experience gain when you're doing things like trap chests.
Yep, very heads-up play from Maggie. With that life glitch, looks like Rydia certainly has enough mana to start casting that Bahamut. So we'll see the pace increase on her side very shortly.
Well, in the meantime, Nerukad has decided it's time to go also beef up in the Eblan Castle trap chest, and he has not looted here, so there's actually a pretty good amount of treasure and shopping change for his wallet coming up.
Notably, I don't believe Nerukad has done the shopping down at Basidia or up at Troya, so it does not yet know the existence of that Leviathan or that Bahamut orb, but we'll certainly be able to afford it after looting here.
To be honest, as much as I like the Mist shops, I think the stuff that's in Mysidia is the real winner that we've seen for the overworld shops today.
Yeah, absolutely. Heroin Robe, Stardust Rod, those two kind of cancel each other out, at least on the Black Mage stats, so Bahamut will not be doing any additional, but also notably no reduced damage for Nerukad, but that high amount of defense, that high amount of bonus agility that the Heroin Robe grants will allow that Rydia to pretty much go first with his party of very slow old guys of Yang and Sid. And being able to go first is very important. Being able to shorten fights by getting that Blarg out that will one-shot just about everything for like the next 10 to 15 minutes.
Well, speaking of which, we can watch MaggieTheKatt as she blows up the skeleton, the Skull and Stalemate chest with the Bahamut summon. And meanwhile, we have the successful Hourglass over on Nerukad's side to get through the Mad Ogre chest. So I think power level, these two are going to be right behind each other.
Absolutely. Maggie found a crystal ring from that Staleman skull chest, which is a great item. Unfortunately, we're not running into the key item that we're probably looking for here, but still, Artemis arrows, great. Crystal ring, outstanding. Best in slot for probably Rydia and many other characters as well, which will allow Maggie to further leverage Rydia and increase the speed of clearing going forward.
The other thing that was in that Mysidia shop, that's where the mute arrows were, and I think that Nerukad would really benefit if he happened to have them. I don't think he's going to have a problem getting through here, but it takes a little bit longer. What did Yelling start? Did we see what Yelling's starting weapon was? I mean, a Charm Claw could also be very useful here.
It'd be based useful, on the hit. But I believe we saw that it was a Poison Claw, so not exactly what we're looking for.
I'm guessing for MP reasons, Titan is being called for the Black Cat Lamia chest on Maggie's side, but that's more than enough to get the fight moving along.
And very heads up on Maggie's side, being able to leverage that Titan to actually get one life glitch off. So we get bonus 3,000 XP from this fight, and every little bit helps this early in the game. And hey, a hook.
Ooh, hook is an interesting thing. It opens up a shop, it opens up an awful lot more treasure, and there are 2 more key item checks, albeit with a little walking to do.
Not only that, but we can finally leverage our starting rat tail too.
That's true. It's not the pink tail, it's the objective, but it could be the tail collector who likes to give away the pink tail, and then we'll accept it right back.
Hey, a rat tail. Cool, take this wait, I want that too. Hold on, take this moon veil instead.
Well, you know what they say, Rybon. You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Maggie making her way over to raise the hovercraft, but first we're going to take a quick look at the backside of the waterfall.
Our players are being very thorough. Both have checked the Mist Cave, both have checked, or at least Maggie has checked the waterfall here. The knowledge is good, knowing that Asura is out of the way, that Mylon and Friends is out of the way, but very much looking for that sneaky D-Mist who may be holding our underground access.
Yeah, and I'm still watching for the seed where we put the D-Mist down on hook 1 and really make it a miserable find. The D-Mist that's gaining our magma key.
Oh boy, do I have a race for you to talk about. But I'll do that after this.
Fair enough.
Let's just say that this is already happened.
Well, then that's a fun time.
Yep.
Well, I would say to everybody, Eblan Elixir League is going on. This is actually a league match. These 2 runners are actually representing 2 different teams that are going to be racing. And I believe, if I remember the order of these things correctly, Nerukad is in Harp Faders Anonymous and MaggieTheKatt is in the Rusty Spoons. Did I get that right, or did I put it backward?
I believe you're correct. So this is a samurai bow. Great. That's not what we were hoping for from that rat tail.
And since we're early in the week, this is the first of a best of 3 match, so that there will be 2 other matchups featuring those teams later in the week. However, the tone and kind of the tenor for how it's going will be set tonight. But Eblan Elixir League is going on. We highly encourage you to be keeping an eye on this channel, Free Enterprise 2, and also the mothership, Free Enterprise 1, where there are other matches. There will be even more coming up in the week, and it will be a good time.
Yes, absolutely. And this is one of the first tournaments, I believe the first tournament, that we are leveraging something called Tournament Time, where we feature double headers of 4 players running the same seed, but 2 separate races at the same time. I believe they'll be on Thursday of this week, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. At least the first segment of that.
And having already participated in one of those, they are quite fun to watch and quite fun to be. They're even more fun to race. Though I should mention, if you're out here watching Free Enterprise, you've seen us for a bit, and you think, man, I loved playing Final Fantasy IV, or even I'd like to try it, we'd highly recommend you to come check out our Discord, hang out with us. We're all a bunch of fun people. It's a great community. It's a lot of fun to play, and we're always happy to see people.
It looks like Nerukad managed to find that Crystal Ring as well, opting to put it on Yang here. Understandable, because does not yet have that Bahamut or a Leviathan for that Rydia. But I think maybe changing his mind in the near future once he checks this video.
Yep. MaggieTheKatt going back to Baron Inn, having a much easier time one-shotting through that Pale Dim and onto the Karate Man fight. And, of course, Karate Man gets to meet the God of the Dragons.
Yep, we are about to find out why Rydia is one of the better characters on this particular flag set.
Yeah, that was about 40 hit points short of a one-shot.
Did literally 99% HP. But hey, now we have another Black Mage.
Yeah, I love the Quack. Oh, and a full moon is our key item reward. That's less than impressive. I love the Quack Kid. He is such a fun character. He gets to Quake so early. He's so useful, and Rydia outshines him in this tournament.
This is one of the few tournaments where you'd rather find a Rydia than the Quack Kid, not just because Bahamut or Leviathan is superior in damage to Quack, but also because the warp glitch is on, and it takes quite a while for that young Mysidian prodigy to learn warp, I believe level 29.
You are correct, sir. And it can be quite frustrating to make your way to the overworld, even with an almost full clear of the overworld, to get down to the dwarf castle and realize you're not quite there, and you're not sure you're going to get there. Well, in the meantime, as Nerukad finishes looting out Eblan Castle, MaggieTheKatt has a choice to make. I think we have 4 locations left that have key items that are available to us. And of course, MaggieTheKatt is actually, while it appears she may be a little bit ahead, she has not done that long check through the All Gauntlet yet.
And it looks like we're gearing up to see that right about now. May go a little faster for Maggie, though, having a little more levels, a little more power at this particular point.
This is true, but it's still considerably tight what's going on, and there's going to be a little bit of pressure to see who can leverage things properly and get the Magna Key first. That could be a huge advantage.
It looks like Nerukad unfortunately had to take a wipe over there in Eblan against those Black Cats and Lamia.
It's a tricky chest. It has less hit points than the other ones, and it seems like it'll be fine, but the punishment if you can't one-shot the Black Cats is pretty stiff.
Yep. If you're going to come at the cats, you best not miss.
But this is an all we happen to know. Of course, Nerukad with the randomization doesn't know what's in here, but we all happen to know there's an all-important hook hidden behind this chest, and that it's very important to get through.
Yep,
and I believe that Crystal Ring did some work.
It may have, and it looks like with that damage from Yang, at least one Black Cat is down. We dodged the first bluster. Sid does not dodge the second. But this cat should go down pretty quickly.
With it being C Hero, Sid not dodging isn't really a huge problem. Frankly, because he's a hero, for those who have not done C Hero, Sid is the center of the seed. He will always be gaining experience, even if he is dead like he is now. That's to keep you from being able to do any sort of tricks where you keep him at low level to help with the initiative and agility. He's going to have to do the mirror fight on Ordeals alone should we go up there, and of course our forge item is going to be specifically for him.
That Yang clutches this fight out for Nerukad, hook in hand. We'll see what he decides to do going forward. May double back to Baron Inn to see what he can get there, but I would like to see him do a little more shopping before diving that hook route.
Well, you and I both know that there's some wonderful things in several of the shops. Of course, that Bahamut's out there, the Leviathan's out there, and quite a bit of defensive gear that'll make this party just a little bit more survivable.
Looks like we're going to be checking... Oh, we may actually be going straight down Eblan, or maybe checking the Rat Tail for Nerukad right now.
Well, those are both actually really productive things to be doing. They both represent progress, and there could be an incredibly good character sitting on the hook route. You know, Fusoya is taking a break from this tournament, so we won't see our favorite mop hanging out there, but this is our first real good opportunity to potentially find a Cecil.
That would definitely push us up Ordeal, which is a location both of our runners have avoided up to this point. Understandable too, it's not a very popular check, being only one key item for 3 fights, but Cecil really changes the calculus on that.
Yeah, well, even Tella can change the calculus because he's got such useful utility in some ways. But just a samurai bow from the Tail Collector, however, Sid will probably wield that with much happiness. That is not a bad bow.
Yeah, a bit of an upgrade. I believe Maggie also found that same samurai bow, threw it on Sid, a bit of an upgrade over that elven bow that they were using previously. And Nerukad may very well be willing to leverage that with Sid in the near future too.
Well, Nerukad going to go do the Cave Eblan, taking a little bit of a risk by not saving here.
Yeah, I'm a little afraid about this. Without the ability to cast Blarg or anything like that, these fights in here will be very challenging. The Stalemen do not mess around.
No, and with the sleep effect that they like to dole out on you, it can be very unpleasant. But it looks like Nerukad is actually not worried about the chest right now. He wants to hit the chops. Maggie completes her time through the All Gauntlet and probably is not happy with what was given as a reward.
No,
At least
but I'm sure.
From my personal opinion, anyway.
I am sure, however, they're very happy to know that All Gauntlet will not be rearing its ugly head later in the feed.
Well, your one-stop ninja shop in Cave Eblan. Earth Hammers.
Right here. Yeah, Earth Hammers have their use. I'm not a fan of them compared to bows and arrows in this particular flag set for Sid, but they do have their use, especially against a Dr. Lugaid in an unfortunate location.
Well, what I like them for is the 4 alerts that are down in the lower Babel dungeon, and especially because I don't think we've seen lightning arrows yet. You want something to make it so you can just one shot through them, and that Earth Hammer will do that job for Sid.
Yeah, and definitely could be leveraged in that way.
And of course, the Ninja Mask is a great item if you like adding agility on characters, and apparently Nerukad feels that way. I absolutely love that play. He's going to speed up Sid for now, which is also not a bad idea, seeing as Sid, I think, is his principal damage dealer until we can get Rydia online.
It looks like we are now opening chests, so I'm a little concerned about the Staleman, but Nerukad may be able to clutch it out, pull it out. Notably, too, on Maggie's side, we're getting the up dog check, the flame dog up in the Tower of Zot. Despite not having a Earth Crystal, it's still a good play because that flame dog chest still represents a key item check just about every time.
Well, and especially good the closer to the entrance you can find it. And this is a great check to reset out of if it should give you just.
Yep. And notably, too, we have yet to find that Demas, so maybe if it is near the end, we still spy that Zot 1 boss. Maybe it's a Demas holding a very nasty magma key.
You don't think there's the Rex Banner going on here, do you?
I mean, there's always a chance.
Well, you know what they say, 60% of the time. It works every time.
Nerukad takes a save down here in the Eblan Cave, so...
I feel a whole lot better with that save in place. Like we mentioned, those 2 Stalemen can be scary. Of course, it would probably be fitting if they're in the 3 chests in the front that he very cautiously walked past.
Mm-hmm. Hey, White Mage.
White Mage is invaluable in this flag set.
Now, what do we have for her? I believe a life staff at the very least. We could maybe make her an archer and eventually maybe make her a heroine as well.
And of course, we have one of the wonderful multi-boss sprites, so either the Baron Guards or the Officer and Soldiers are waiting for, or excuse me, in the hook route.
Armed with a Bahamut, not that Nerukad currently has the Dragon God, but if Maggie happens to come down here, sees those guards, may be willing to test who those guards potentially are. If they're Kaipo guards, 1 Blarg will pretty much take care of it and allow you to skip or fade that magma key wherever it may be on the overworld.
Well, Maggie finishes petting the doggo and finds a Dragoon Helm for her trouble. At least I believe it was a Dragoon Helm. She flashed through it pretty quickly. It was definitely not a key item, but we are going to go ahead and peek the boss up here.
All right, show me a Demas. And it is not a Demas.
It is a free fight King Queen Eblan, but Maggie was just Demas hunting and doesn't feel like walking back out. Oh, and saved over her save and will be walking out regardless.
We'll be keeping that Dragoon helmet, which, believe it or not, is a very useful item on this flag set, giving Sid or anyone else who can equip it that elemental resistance, which could be invaluable in particular fights. But yeah, I would probably prefer resetting out and saving the time here.
Well, one of the deeper chests is where Nerukad finds the Mad Ogres, and we'll see how he does working through this fight. It's going to be a bit of a slog, particularly with their high magic resistance.
Yeah, Sid, I don't believe in this situation picked up mute arrows, which I believe are over in Mythidia, so this is definitely going to be a slog, and that Stardust Rod is not going to do the damage that Nerukad is hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of fight where, as much as people malign Tella for being a unquote bad character, a Tella that's been through Mount ordeals is absolutely can be clutch in this fight. Well, speaking of ordeals, Maggie's decided to bite the bullet, check the 3 bosses, and go up ordeals and see if Sid can face his destiny.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Let's see. So, where could our magma key reside? Either one of the hook route chests, I suppose, which we'll find out hopefully shortly from this Mad Ogre chest, whether it's here. Ordeals, is there anywhere else we've forgotten?
There may be one other check that unlocks once we see key items in these, but I think of the basic ones that are open to us, these are the ones that remain. Very heads-up play from Nerukad's side to cast Stop on the Mad Ogres and buy himself a little time and a little bit less damage. Again, as the fight gets a little farther along, it gets to be a bit more manageable, but they are hitting Yang pretty hard right now.
They are, unfortunately, young, big, beefy boy, a big wall of HP, but that's all he is. Unfortunately, his defense never really gets to the levels of like a Cecil, a Kane, or a Sid. And this is turning bad for Nerukad, I'm afraid.
Yeah, sad to say. And we have a Rubicon on top of the first check-in ordeals. We're swapping one other. But I'm guessing Ruby's not going to be Maggie electing to use Titan instead of doing that. Of course, Palom says, excuse me, I'm going to go solo this fight.
You know, Palom is all of like, you know, talk about how I'm the worst black mage is overstated. I am handling this, and hey, it's elements.
Well, if you like Ruby, we could see Ruby Part 2 here. And of course, Maggie you can see the reason why she was holding back with that Titan, so she would make sure she'd have enough mana to do a full Bahamut cast here and kind of breeze through this fight.
Yeah. We're definitely seeing how Bahamut can make many of these early game fights just breeze by immediately. This fight could definitely drag on if you can't do sufficient damage, and you know, doing 5k damage, 6k damage in one shot early game is just astounding.
Nerukad making his way back down the hook route to take a second shot at the Mad Ogre chest.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have an easier time this time around. Still lacks any mage cannon gear, so it could be a little difficult, but oh, maybe are we skipping it? Because I think it was in that chest on the previous screen.
It was.
Well,
so wondering if we're making a little cheeky check to go down and see who the boss is. Meanwhile, we are going to find out the progression is going to be on this hook route where Nerukad is, because only an Elixir is sitting up on top of Mount Ordeals.
That's interesting. So it's either... Oh, resetting out is very interesting too. May regret that later on if a Cecil or a Tella shows up, but would save a bit of time if it doesn't otherwise. That Elixir is not necessarily useful here.
Well, that fight again in the mirror room with Sid leveled like he is isn't going to be a terribly long one. The problem is that there's about a minute of cutscene while the game tells you lots of messages about things that have happened now that you've completed the fight.
Yeah, bit of a gamble regardless, though. You've already invested this much time to go up ordeals. I wouldn't mind sitting through it, but I mean, definitely could still pay off for Maggie. But Maggie has no other choice but to go down this hook route, and that is where they're going.
Well, again, sitting in Maggie's position is, I've been there before, it's not very fun to be sitting at that spot where you've checked everything except that one last spot, you know your last location in it, and you don't quite know what your opponent is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I suspect we're about to I'm guessing it's going to be in the infirmary, because I think that
I think we checked the infirmary. Oh, no, we didn't check the infirmary, you're right.
But yeah, I think all the other chests got checked between the two runners, so we know that. I don't think they do. Nerukad taking a deep breath before we attempt to do the Mad Ogre chest a second time. Samurai and Artemis bow on Porum to hopefully let her do some damage here.
Mm-hmm. So which one do you think it is, Tall Grant? Do you think it's here in the Mad Ogres, or do you think the stalemate hold the keys to the kingdom?
Based on how hard the Mad Ogres are fighting, I bet you they've got it.
The key must give you like a bonus to your strength.
Well, I mean, I feel more powerful when I've got it in my possession.
Poor Chocobo. Here's a stalemain just waiting in the hospital. What kind of hospital is this? Very hazardous.
A monster hospital. But, you know, it's actually more than necessary than ever with the popularity of free enterprise these days. You wouldn't believe the number of monsters who wind up here.
Courtesy of Bahamut, I'm sure. But where is these stalemain going to go now? They were already in the hospital. They're taken out. They're their magma key. So now we know how to get underground.
Yes, we do. And we can all celebrate because we can get underground now. Maggie, not interested in checking the Mad Ogre chest, ready to go right to the underground. Nerukad resets out of the Mad Ogre fight and goes to take a look down at the boss on the hook route. I'm not sure this is going to be terribly useful for him because unfortunately the first boss spot here does not come with experience.
It does not. It's a Mylon Z, which is actually quite weak to that Earth Hammer that we have, but this is a very punchy spot, low magic, high physical offense, and Mylon Z does a whole lot of punching.
And still relatively fast.
Rexral pointing out something very important in chat. By not going down that hook route, Maggie is missing out on that Porum that happens to be waiting at the end of it.
Yeah, and that's actually potentially a big deal. There are a lot of punchy, difficult bosses that kind of require you to have some healing to get through it. And yes, you can spend the money and try and potion with Cure 3s, but it's a whole lot faster to have a nice white mage in a heroine robe who's throwing out spells, especially with that life staff our runners found.
Yep, Porum is just one of the better characters on this flag set. I almost like her better than Rosa. And that's not just because, Porum is awesome. But that's also because Porum learns exit naturally, whereas Rosa, you need to complete the Tower of Thought. And having exit just saves so much time on this flag set, unless you do particular things like do your moon bosses before you do your Feymarsh bosses for more XP. So Maggie's going to be missing out on that, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and there are a few checks later where having that exit is nice. In fact, just even walking down to the Feymarch as Maggie's doing is a place where it's nice to have exit versus having to walk up to the shortcut out. In the meantime, Nerukad's making his way up. We're hoping he will go ahead and look for that magma key with the stalemate on his way out.
It looks like he's giving up on the Mad Ogre, so whatever item that Mad Ogre's chest is holding will remain a mystery to all of us for the time being. Would be very interesting for both of our runners today if that happens to be holding our Darkness Crystal.
Yeah, we haven't really talked too much about our objectives here, but that Darkness Crystal is going to be hard required. We have a series of 8 objectives on the tracker below, and 6 of them are going to be required to complete the seed. But if you do your math really quickly, you'll see that Cave Bahamut, the Mazamune Altar, and the Giant of Babel, which all require Darkness Crystal, are there. So the runners have to do at least one of those checks.
Darkness, very hard required. Looks like our freebie into the Feymarch, one of the Masamune, so not very useful tonight. And I think very shortly we'll get to see what fresh challenges wait for us here in the Feymarch.
Ooh, this is the fancy hat shop. Nerukad smartly not forgetting to do the Eblan Infirmary. It's a... oh, he's walked out of it.
That is unfortunate. May have only thought there was one chest in there and not 2.
I don't think he checked either of the chests, though.
Oh. Maybe for the best, actually. I'm not sure if Nerukad has the ability to get through the stalemate right now.
Well, he's going to have to at some point, but we'll see what else gets found along the way. But yeah, just getting out and doing the shopping and finding Bahamut's going to provide a pretty big quality of life improvement.
Yeah, definitely.
Maggie to give us our peek at the first two objective bosses down in the Fey March. We have a Lunar Sparkle and the Dark Elf.
All right, one of those is not bad, and the other one is a big question mark.
Well, both our runners actually have Artemis arrows, so that Dark Elf is really not a terrible fight, other than just the speed. But the first half of that fight, the magic power tends to be pretty weak.
Absolutely. I think Dark Elf is one of those bosses where the magic power is fixed no matter where it happens to be. So it doesn't matter if it's in a very high magic spot, like, say, Mossamian Altar. That Dark Elf is going to be a very weak magic caster. And notably, that Asura spot where he's currently occupying is a pretty decent magic spot.
Nerukad on his way up Mount Ordeals.
All right, we'll see if he decides to keep, the potential unlock Cecil and unlock Tella here when he completes Mount Ordeals.
Meanwhile, we have Maggie giving us the fan favorite check of Job Dwarf. But not before robbing the place a little bit. He is an EEG technician.
What is an EEG?
An EEG, I think, is like an EKG, but it's a similar type of medical scan.
Oh, it's an EKG with more valves. I got it.
Well, it particularly is actually using, it's actually used to measure electrical activity in the brain, which
neat.
Probably why I haven't taken one, seeing as I have deficiencies up there.
Yeah, definitely. If it tested on me, it would come back negative. Let's see. I believe we did see a sparkle down there in the Fey March. We have seen, I just want to run down the sparkles we've already seen. I think we've seen D-Lunars and Pale Dim. Is that correct?
That's correct. And unfortunately, that gives us a 1 out of shot of having pleasantness down there, especially in that king slot, because Ogo Pogo is an extremely not fun boss in this flag set. Just with the large amount of damage he does via the waves, punchiness that he'll get in that spot, that is a very difficult place to have to face him.
Yeah, definitely. But I think both of our runners will be up to the task if it comes to that. But for both of them, hoping it's just like a plague or something like that.
Nerukad making his way through the elements fight. I will point out that Nerukad does not have the Palom that is currently being carried by Maggie, but I think that the White Mage deficit's a little bit bigger deal.
Oh yeah, I agree. In both of our runners' case, if I had to choose between having Palom or Porum in my party, it is Porum 99% of the time.
100% with you there. Well, we see our friend Microchords is here, along with Funnel Cakes. I believe those folks were involved with the Free Enterprise broadcast. We're not going to actually talk about the result over there, but there was a fantastic race, I'm sure, between E-Ninja and TJ tonight that we'd highly recommend you go check out with the videos on demand.
Yep, but after this one, don't leave us yet.
No. So Maggie begins searching out the trap chests in Lower Babel as Cat is the second fight on the Ordeals and is about to go collect the elixir.
So again, MaggieTheKatt decided to reset out of this fight, which I believe is an evil wall in the changing room. Very interested to see what Nerukad decision-making process is going to be.
I mean, elixir's not a bad item to have. It's just that are you willing to trade the time it takes to get it?
It looks like, at least on MaggieTheKatt's side, we have begun clearing the trap chest here in the Tower of Lower Babel. That Yang is showing off his ability to use a Thunderclaw quite well here, one-shotting all of these checks and getting through these trap chests extremely quickly.
Yes, and like I said, when we saw Nerukad buying the Earth Hammer, that's one of the checks here. Nerukad does elect to take this evil wall fight. I don't think Sid's going to have a problem with it.
Definitely not. Sid, however, may have a Dwarf Axe on? No, looks like have that Earth Hammer on, so about 2-3 swings should be enough here. And an additional Stardust Rod from MaggieTheKatt over there. I'm not sure if they bought a second one for that Palom, but that Palom now has one if not.
Well, you know how it is with little kids. If one of them gets something, everyone has to have it.
Yeah, we can't have favorites here, unfortunately.
Except for Kane, he's everyone's favorite.
He's all right.
Nerukad electing to take the fight, promote his potential Cecil and a potential Tella out there. As the viewing audience, we happen to know 5 of the characters that are in this seed. I don't think either Maggie or Nerukad, Nerukad has seen that the Palom exists at that Baron Inn.
Mm-hmm. And hey, we just found our first objective that will likely be completed, a pink tail from MaggieTheKatt. We already have that hook in hand. That's objective number 7, likely to be turned in the near future.
Yeah, the only thing that's not wonderful about that is the fact adamant armors are turned off in this flag set. The pink tail's instead going to be a random, fairly high tier item, which may or may not be useful, but we will not get the strongest of the armors.
Let's see, you're our runners right now. What tier 7 do you want to find, or tier 8, from that pink tail turn in?
I think the best thing that this party could have is going to be an Artemis bow, frankly. I know that you're kind of getting to the point where you're not necessarily going to be pumping up Sid, but just the agility and the damage power that has. And there's Tower Key, which is a very nice find here.
You'll always find Tower Key in Keyless Tower.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Nerukad willing to go take another round. They'll dim. Smoother this time.
Yes, I don't believe Pale Dim's going to have a good time, nor will that Karachi on the back end as well.
Well, it's always satisfying to get that revenge. Our top of tower boss today will be the elusive D-Mist.
Oh, bonus round, baby.
This flag set tends to produce an awful lot of value in that lower babble between the 4 trap chests, the 2 main key item checks, and then on top of that we have that D-Mist today.
This routes pretty nicely for Maggie, having that pink tail in hand to go turn it in and combine it with that D-Mist turn in as well. Especially if maybe like a pan appears from either here or the super cannon room. That's a lot of checks that could eventually route very nicely together.
You say a lot of checks that route nicely together. If we get the right key item here, we're in go mode.
That too, then all these checks are less useful. I mean, we may still want to get 10 for purposes of grinding. Our party is still pretty low level, and with the inability to do sirens or the traditional grind that you mentioned at the start, due to no EXP on, 10 key items can definitely go a long way by allowing us to get far more experience from trap chests, which still grant experience.
Well, that's okay, Rybon. I know the ultimate secret for gaining experience, and that is to go slingshot a character on the Giant of Babel.
That's a great idea, except for the whole beating whatever happens to be there at the 65k location. Easier said than done.
Well, I could just summon a group of an alert that'll summon me some D machines and get my experience that way.
Ah, I see. Yeah, except that we've already seen our alt conflict.
Well, and except also that it is a tall grant special to go summon D machines and spend 10 minutes grinding them when they provide 0 experience, like in this flag set. And it would not be the first time in a live race that I've done that either.
So I'm going to diverge from this race for a second, but throughout this entire tournament, through all the potion parties we're going to see, do you think we'll actually see a legitimate D-Machine grind, which ultimately would have to come from just doing a D-Machine grind on an alt gauntlet that happens to appear on the Giant of Babel?
It seems really memey, but I'm gonna guess no. I mean, I've kind of gotten to the point where if I see a alt gauntlet in a nasty enough location, we're doing 6 out of 8. It's like, okay, I'm out of here. It will take me less time to go find a proper objective than to sit here with Bimmy and Jimmy.
The sunk cost fallacy. It always gets me.
It does.
I'm already up here. I may as well do it.
Well,
speaking of doing it, yeah, Maggie has taken down that Demon very quickly, leveraging the power of Bahamut.
Yep, and meanwhile, Nerukad is slowly narrowing down the over options. I think we've learned that the Ordeals is not going to be the way, so I think we're down to just 3 trap chests that have not been looked at. And the pan, a nice item if you want to go visit Sheila, and another pair of checks suddenly makes sense.
Yes, as mentioned earlier, this routes in very nicely with that D-Myth checked, routes in very nicely with that pink tail turn in. I think the path is pretty clear for Maggie, and I hope they take it.
Meanwhile, Nerukad on his way up to pet the flame dog. We have been up here once before and have seen that there's not really going to be value here unless you like Dragoon hats. And Octomam named the super cannon with the many tentacles.
Yeah, not exactly a boss you want to see here. This is a generally free location, and Octomam, though punchy, is one of the easier of the punchy bosses out there. I wouldn't mind actually seeing this boss up on the moon.
Well, particularly because as the fight progresses, Octomam slows down. Of course, death being the ultimate slowdown, Octomam has been forever slowed by MaggieTheKatt, and the super cannon shall now explode.
Oh no, that was a load-bearing boss. Run.
Well, we're going to have a little bit of walking time for our runners, so I'm going to take them to point out to our streamers that if you haven't had a chance, I would follow both of these runners. The community is a really fun place to be, and of course, it's great to meet people and watch them run. You can hang out with them while they practice and do things, and I have seen that both of them have been a bit active the last couple of weeks. I'd also say that our fine restream team is a group of people you should be following. Of course, S-Grunt with the many wonderful clubs that he runs and the wonderful role he plays in our community. Chuck Ultra, who is doing a better job eating buttons than a certain other spring tournament champion I can think of. And of course, if you want to learn a thing or two, Rybon Stream is quite the place.
I appreciate it. And of course, watch Tall Grant, fantastic streamer, very dedicated to his craft, and a great coach and mentor. And I saw you working with your team last night, getting them ready for their matches this week.
To be honest, my favorite thing about this tournament was the opportunity to meet people and to make friendships. And I just am so tickled to have the opportunity to do that here and actually be sitting in actually getting to dispense some knowledge rather than just sit there and have to absorb due to the number of mistakes and things that I have left to learn. Nerukad has finished petting the flame dog and is on his way back out. Meanwhile, Maggie has decided the pan has value and is going to go down to Bonkyong.
All right, Maggie is making a very efficient play here. Pan into D-Mist, into Pink-Tailed Turtle. Nerukad, at the very least, we can say that he now knows where his progression lies. He's back on that hook route, and we'll probably see him heading in that direction very shortly.
Well, and the good news for him is that the chest where it's going to be sitting is not terribly deep, and he can hopefully avoid going down to the Mad Ogres. But I think Nerukad is going to go shop Agate, which I don't think he's done yet. I think he's out looking for Blarg, and that will benefit him greatly.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Nerukad has been definitely running this seed a little short-handed to this point. We're going to see a big change in his fortunes, picking up a Mute Dagger, Artemis bow, or Artemis arrows, and Elven bow. Hopefully, a couple black belts and a Blarg over in Mysidia, and then everything's just going to fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Maggie did not forget that D-Mist. And what does Iridia's mom have for us today? Is it go mode? Yes, it is.
Wow. That is a heads-up play. No, that is exactly go mode, and that's a heads-up play by Maggie to go grab that. I don't think we quite have the power to do much of it other than that Dark Elf, but that Dark Elf fight should be a pretty good place to start. So let me ask you a question. We technically have go mode. Do you really feel like we have go mode knowing that there could be Ogo down below?
In this case, yes. However, Fey March is not something I do immediately. Fey March is something that I do after I do the moon, because believe it or not, I find that the moon spots are easier than doing the Fey March spots. They're slower. They may have a little more HP, but some of them have lower attack power or lower magic power than the Fey March spots, and they give you a ton more XP than the Fey March locations. I think like the King spot will give you a whole 28,000 XP. That's very little in regards to the amount of effort you need to put in to get through that spot. So I would like to see Maggie head up to the moon very shortly, check that character on the lunar dais, maybe even do the hair dryers, which is a very nice chunk of XP as well after turning in the pan here.
Well, and that gets back to that glaring issue we discussed with Maggie. Not only team members, so she can't get the benefit of having 5 people in there, she's missing the White Mage, which is a very, very important character.
Mm-hmm. So it would be very much a benefit to Maggie if a Porum just happens to be waiting up on that lunar dais. It looks like Nerukad walked by the infirmary, unfortunately, so Maybe going to off to go do those Mad Ogres instead.
Well, there are also 2 chests a little farther down that haven't been checked, so he may be going to look at that. Meanwhile, looks like the Luca key has popped its way into MaggieTheKatt's inventory.
So Maggie's in an interesting situation right now. You definitely want to probably take a few trap chests in order to get enough power to push through these difficult fights that lie ahead of us, either on the Giant, up on the Moon, or down in the Fey March. And with 9 key items now with that Luca key in hand, you may want that 10 so that you can accelerate your grind a bit.
Well, and somebody like Rydia, who's got relatively slow hit point growth, would benefit a lot for that. But I think we're going to see the Dwarf Castle check in the hopes of getting a 5th character.
I also like the Dwarf Castle check, not just because of the opportunity to get a 5th character. It's 2 key item checks, and I don't want to do that Giant. That Giant takes a long time. It can definitely be difficult if the wrong bosses show up there. I may just very well want to go spend time looking for a Baron key instead.
Yeah, well, that Baron, or even better, how about a Legend Sword?
A Legend Sword would also be great. I mean, I'd love to see a Cid Supersmith weapon available for our party.
Well, we see Mage Robes Are Us down in the Dwarf Castle. They've gotten into weaving down there, and looks like it's a pretty healthy business for them.
Yeah, I'd be a little reluctant to buy them just because kids grow out their clothing so quickly.
Don't I know it? Well, Maggie's in an interesting spot with 1 hit point from having, it seems an eternity ago, having walked down to the Fey March. We're a little bit low, but Maggie's, again, heads up enough to know to step outside and heal up first.
I wonder if Maggie's going to take these checks here at Dwarf Castle, or is it instead just shopping? I guess we're going to find out in a moment. Looks like just shopping.
Well, I thought there might be a fun, cheeky play to put the white robe permanently on Rydia. Normally, adult Rydia cannot equip the white robe, but thanks to the logic of free enterprise, if she equips it while she's a child and leaves it on, it can stay on indefinitely as long as you don't change it out.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I guess any character that had the white command can equip the white robe, and while a child, Rydia does have that white command.
Nerukad back to get some revenge on these Mad Ogres, and as the old saying goes, now it's my turn.
Looks like Maggie is interested in taking some Sylph traps, maybe for looking for a 10th key item, or maybe just trying to get a big chunk of XP from here.
And the Mad Ogres are slashed by Odin. There is no Thunderstruck to save them today, and Nerukad in style has gotten his revenge.
All right, this could be big. A Baron key would be pretty huge from Nerukad, giving him an opportunity to avoid doing that Giant. An Earth Crystal is also interesting.
Yeah, it is. Again, we just have to hope that Nerukad takes that chest in the infirmary on the way out.
Absolutely. So it looks like we're actually walking toward the hook route bosses.
You know, if you're frustrated about not finding Magma Key, that's one other way to do it. And as we discussed earlier, the Protect Rings that Nerukad picked up earlier, this is going to be a fairly doable hook route. So it's not a traditional way, but frankly, with the frustration and the potential to have to go down the chain of Earth Crystal and Upzot, this is not a bad play.
Can you remind me what is waiting at the first location? I think it was
the first location is Mylon Z, which with just enough power. I think Porum has Blink now, so that shouldn't be a terrible fight.
We have our first trap chest done over from Maggie. Gets a ribbon, which is actually not a bad item, although we at least have Evil Wall accounted for, so it won't be too useful in that fight. But there's still a Golbez out there.
Yeah, and the laughing comedian won't find it quite so funny if he sees a ribbon where somebody can safely be protected from Shadow's thing and drop a Star Veil to ruin his fun. And we all hope his fun is ruined because he deserves it.
So one thing I want to point out here, Maggie threw the Assassin Dagger on Rydia, which I very much like. With that Assassin Dagger adds 5 agility. Rydia actually is going first out of all these characters on Maggie's side, giving them the option to cast that Bahamut, or in this case, his Titan, as quickly as possible, and getting us through this fight, by the looks of it, pretty unscathed.
Well, again, Palom is shoving his way to the forefront, trying to take advantage. Looking like a pretty solid fight over on Nerukad's side against the Mylon Z. I think he's going to get through this without too much of a problem.
All right, so I don't believe we've seen either of our guards yet. This could be Kaipo guards, which we're definitely hoping for. Baron guards would be a definite challenge for Nerukad, and I'm hoping that he's able to get through it.
Yeah, again, I don't think he has necessarily shopped in Mysidia and seen the mute arrows yet. However, Mass Life is actually pretty useful in the situation for an Ashura summon. It's not always the one you want to see, but this actually gives a couple more meat shields to his damage dealers.
And again, Maggie is very much using the Assassin Dagger on Rydia to great effect. Fast enough, faster than that Sid, who I believe may have a Scorfax on, to throw that mute bell in time, shut down these ghosts, get that Quake off. Look at the kids working together, 22k XP. We are powering up quite well, and maybe a 10th key item? Yes.
A twin harp that I suspect will not get checked. You know, another heads-up thing, and one of the more clever bits of this flag set is the use of the bell against these three spirits. It's a fairly, not terribly dangerous, but long fight, and the mute bells just save you a bunch of time and effort. Meanwhile, Nerukad safely through the Mylon Z and on to find out what kind of guards we're facing today.
All right, show me Kaipo guards. Please. Baron guards are scary.
And we have Baron guards. This is a little bit scary. I believe these are going to have, what, about 17,000 hit points beast?
Around there, and unfortunately we don't have a Bahamut to deal a ton of damage in a very short order. Normally, the play that Nerukad here is making might actually work on other seeds when no free bosses is off, but Odin cannot instant kill guards with no free bosses on.
Yeah. Well, let's go see if we can slog through it.
Meanwhile, Maggie now with 10 key items, getting through these ghosts, now giving 44,000 XP, powering up the party extremely efficiently, and still on that lookout for the Baron key or the Legend Sword. Unfortunately not finding it.
And a small correction from XenoCat, I had misplaced my hit points a little bit there. There's actually about 12,000 each of these things. Still going to be a bit of a rough fight, though.
Broke, my dears. Hopefully we've put that ribbon on Rydia here. We did not. Maybe it's on Yonka. Unfortunately, Toads cannot summon Angry Dragon, guys.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. We have Palom here to save the day. Do it again.
Well, meanwhile, the Toad Lady and her tiny toads have been dropped down into the center of the earth, and MaggieTheKatt will find for her trouble another life staff.
Only they had someone to actually equip it. Nerukad unfortunately taking an unfortunate wipe to those Baron guards. May decide at this point to double back. Looks like trying to cast Exit, but we'll have to warp out of here first. I think maybe tempted to go do that Earth Crystal instead.
Well, hindsight is perfect, and so we can sit here in the catbird seat and see what's going on. Just be hopeful that the magma key gets checked on the way. Of course, Nerukad, I think, is deciding to go take a second crack at it and see if he can get through this boss.
All right. I didn't hear no bell. Let's go. Round two.
Let's go get him. Meanwhile, Rydia Bahamut through the two centipedes, probably the weakest of the bosses, and then certainly the least of the experience down here. And for her troubles, a crystal sword for a Cecil who may or may not be here. Short of Cecil, if you will.
Indeed. Definitely a nice chunk of money, but I think at this point, money is an afterthought for both of our runners. Both of them are just rolling in the cash. 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 gil each. They can pretty much buy all the power they want.
Well, when the seed forces you to check all the trap chests, that tends to happen.
I believe that's the last mute bell for our last packs of ghosts. So Maggie very well using that starting trap kit that we had to great effect.
Yeah, I think Maggie's pretty effectively clearing out all of the Fey March, would put her in good shape to start making attempts at the end game here.
I like this play by Maggie, getting to 10 key items, getting their levels. You have a lot of very difficult fights coming up ahead, and you already know of 2 very difficult fights down in Fey March waiting for you. The temptation is definitely there. Just go do your objective, win the game, but it'll be a whole lot easier and a whole lot faster when you have another 20 levels on that Rydia in the tower.
Well, and unfortunately, this is still a pretty slow team, which is going to increase the difficulty going to the end. We talked about liking Sid as a hero relatively, but unfortunately, everybody else that we've seen also tends to be pretty slow. I mean, there are 3 really, really speedy characters who tend to go blaze past people on Edge, Edward, and Kane, and we have not sights of any of them.
Not yet. Now, that Earth Crystal that Nerukad has may be checked. Maybe there's a Cecil waiting up there, and we do have ordeals completed on Nerukad's side. Could give him the power that he needs to maybe get through those Baron guards.
Yeah. Well, Maggie's making her way down to the Fey March, going to find out what that sparkle is. I have all but convinced myself it's going to be Ogo Pogo, but that may be because I'm a little traumatized from the speed I ran.
Don't worry, Talgrad. The Ogo Pogo can't hurt you here.
Well,
it can hurt Maggie and Nerukad, but it can't hurt you.
I'm not the one who has to run it. Maggie making a brief stop over at the warrior chest. Meanwhile, Nerukad looks like he wants to go see who the characters are up on Zot.
Another 43,000 XP for Maggie, and her party gets a package. I don't think we'll be checking that one, but, more key items.
I don't know. Again, getting back to the issue of do not have white mage.
Do not have white mage. We have a number of checks for character, though, whether it's Dwarf Castle, that LST, that hook route that Maggie didn't go all the way down and find that Porum yet.
Or find that Earth Crystal.
Or that Earth Crystal. Like, we're probably going to see all 7 of our characters at one point. At least I hope so. Yeah, up the Tower of Zot, Nerukad goes.
Yep, to visit what he does not know, but we know is the King and Queen of Eblan.
And it looks like Maggie is gearing up to take a shot at this Sparkle and this Dark Elf.
Answering question for Garen26. I do not believe. I believe he actually has a single crystal ring, which I think the last time I saw it, it was placed on Yon, but I'm not 100% sure. No, I take it back. We saw it on Rydia a minute ago. So he has a crystal ring on Rydia to prevent. No, it doesn't prevent size. You're right. That just prevents some of the other hold effects.
Paralyzed, I believe. For side, we're primarily looking for Zeus gauntlets, which we haven't found yet. Ribbons, which we found in a trap chest, but I don't think Nerukad has found. Only Maggie has encountered thus far.
Yeah, I believe you're correct.
And adamants, which are not in this seed.
Well, Dark Elf begins his attack with some super weak level 2 spells, and I think the casters in this party are probably laughing at the feeble attempt to do this with him. However, that weak spell isn't very funny.
That Dark Elf is moving very, very fast. Rydia is probably dead here, despite how weak this is, courtesy of the Wombo combo of weak into Fire 2. So that's rough for Maggie, unfortunately.
Well, I don't think the fight's necessarily lost here with those needs to get to the second half of the fight. Or excuse me, they just need to get to the second half of the fight. But again, the speed issue comes up here. These Feymarsh bosses are both relatively fast, with the Queen spot being pretty high up there, almost up in Saroma's level of speed.
Yes, I like what Maggie's doing here, lowering the battle speed when in doubt. Like, there are a lot of these fights that may seem impossible, insurmountable. If you are not run buffering, or if you can't run buffer, there are a number of locations up on the moon where run buffering is ineffective. In order to try to slow down the fight, just lower that battle speed. You'll have plenty more time to menu, plenty more time to get through these fights and make the impossible effectively possible.
Nerukad is through King and Queen Eblan fight. We're about to see who our additional characters are up on Zot, and we might find the final two characters for the seed.
Show me a Cecil. And I guess a Kane. Kane would be cool.
Yeah, the Cecil would be fun, especially because I think a couple Excalibur. And there he is, the man himself. That should make Nerukad's life quite a bit better.
The man of the hour. All right. Nerukad, unfortunately, never checking the city and never finding that Bahamut, but found the next best thing. In fact, maybe even something better.
Well, I'm sure we'll be seeing Cecil join the party. So the question is, who does he replace?
Not the Porum. Maybe the Rydia, actually. Without a Bahamut or Leviathan around, Nerukad may feel that Rydia's not pulling the weight.
I don't feel bad about throwing the Yong away for Cecil.
I'd agree with that too. And the choice is... No, really? Don't do it.
Nah, he's...
Maybe we'll just go pick him up at Ordeals or the Tower of Wishes later.
Well, nah, Nerukad has other things in mind. I think Cecil doesn't have his levels yet, so maybe we'll hold off. Maggie getting very close, and there's the changeover from Dark Elf to the second half of the fight. Let's see what she has in mind for this, for the back part of this.
And notably, look at that boss over on Nerukad's side.
We're now to 50-50 that could be that Ogo Pogo, and the other thing that could be there, of course, is Wyvern, which, with Witchburn turned on, is a interesting adventure every time.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen a Death Wish Wyvern down here who threw Berserk my Artemis Arrowcaster, and I've also seen one who threw Cold Fist and made everybody pretty unhappy.
Maybe we'll get Storm. Maybe we'll get Retreat. Retreat would be fun.
Retreat Vern's fun. Explode Vern's even more entertaining.
Yeah, at least you get XP for that one.
Well, most of them get XP.
Yeah, some people get XP. Hopefully it explodes on your, hero, and everyone gets XP.
Looks like we have a fun strat going on Nerukad's side, working on counting Plague out. And there's a reflected count. Plague, despite free bosses being turned off, is not immune to his own nasty effect. So, if Nerukad can afford to wait long enough, Plague will die.
And if not, with a Berserk Sid here, Plague will die anyway as... Oh, unfortunately, yeah, I forgot that Porum had the wall up, but maybe Plague dies anyway from just being hit often enough.
Yeah, well, I think the health here is not so high, but Nerukad's not taking any chances, and Palom takes care of his...
Meanwhile, Maggie did complete that Dark Elf, so that is 2 objectives for her up to this point. Well, we're about to find out our answer. Is it Ogo Pogo? Oh, no.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I thought Canadians were supposed to be nice.
Well, Esgrunt gonna Esgrunt on us, or... Well, I'm gonna go check my VPN and specifically some tracking over there. Cubs Rule may have invaded this seed. In the meantime, Nerukad has Plague all taken care of. Plague doesn't count out, just enough damage is done to take him down, and we will go be seeing another key item check, which hopefully will be a Baron key. Or actually, a Legend Sword would probably be even more fun here.
Yeah.
Though, unfortunately, Nerukad is about to be back to a single spot left to check for that Magma.
And Maggie is deciding that Ogo Pogo, the time is not right. I'll be back for you later.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes discretion is the better part of valor, and especially with that the other we have not seen tonight, as unfun as Kainatsu is, that Dark Knight Cecil is a real problem in this flag set, especially this far into not having spotted him.
Well, the That Dragoon Glove is not what we're looking for here, but now Nerukad knows that there is only one spot left, and I need to go do it.
Meanwhile, Maggie the Cat on her way to raise the lunar whale.
Yeah, you did mention a number of bosses, very rude, very difficult. Haven't encountered them yet, but we do have not one, not two, not three, but 4 boss checks available to us to complete the giant and to complete our 2 moon spas. DKC at any one of those pretty much nullify that entire opportunity to get through them, at least with the party that we have now. We may be searching for that Baron Key and be searching for that Legend Sword, sooner rather than later.
Nerukad finally making the check into the shop at Mysidia and starting to discover that there's quite a few goodies waiting for him here.
Yeah, this is a big changing point right here. Black belt available, heroin robes available. Hopefully doesn't spend too much money before he makes his way on over to the item shop where Bahamut waits.
He has enough other things that he can sell to get that Bahamut. I'm sure that he will be happy to sell the farm to get that in hand. That'll be a large quality of life improvement.
Ta-da!
Maggie decides the giant is the first check. I actually like this quite a bit. As much as you said the lunar checks can be easy, other than the high health, that first spot on the giant is not the world's worst for some of the multipliers, and there is a experience. If you get through that without a problem, the rest of the checks go pretty smoothly after.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The giant with 10 key items represents 500,000 XP for all of our characters in this party. You take 500,000 XP, you pump it into a Rydia, pump it into a Palom, even a Yang, and they become superstars with the remainder of the seed. Also, heads up play by Maggie, checking for last arm here.
A lot
giving you an opportunity to find. Yeah, it is a unpopular check because you come all the way up here. Takes a while to find. Even if you do find it, takes a while to exit here too. But it could be your alternative to this giant. It could be that Legend Sword. It could be that Baron Key.
Well, in our tracker, Chuck Ultra is calling his shot on this already, mentioning that this is a great check right before Maggie does it.
Yang, once again, leveraging that Thunderclaw.
And we do, by the way, I encourage you, if you and you like doing this thing, of course, join the Discord, come play with us. If you like kind of watching what we're doing, we'd highly encourage you to also sign up for the stream. It's a great fun experience. I know Rybon and I are both happy to be here doing it. It's a great way to watch a race, just to sit here and have a conversation with friends and hang out with people while we do this.
And it looks like Maggie found that spoon up there in the last arm. Not the progression we're looking for, unfortunately. So it looks like Maggie is opting to go do LST checks, opting to go do that K value. See if she can maybe get a little more power before tackling that giant.
I suspect we're about to see a hairdryer check.
I like it. Hairdryer represents a lot of potential XP. With life glitches and without 10 key items, it's over 50,000 XP. With more than 10 key items, it's more than 100,000 XP. A huge amount. What I would like to see from Maggie, though, is checking the character on the LST dais first, because that character, if a Cecil, a Porum, or anyone else is slingable, would get 200,000 XP.
And Nerukad heading toward the hook route. In the meantime, Maggie is looking at it. Blarg solve all of the problems, as Blarg is a fantastic tool for doing such things.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like a Swiss Army knife. You have an angry dragon god, every problem is like a nail. Is that how that goes?
And is there value on the lunar subterranean? A sand ruby with a yang behind it. That is the antithesis of value.
It's a little unfortunate here. Nerukad may not know there's trap chests or chests available, or pots available in the infirmary to loot where our stalemen are hiding.
Well, that's something that sometimes catches newer runners in this thing. I know I actually checked that question pop up in the Discord earlier this week about whether you could find a trap chest in there. And the answer is yes, you can.
The good news is that after this seed, Nerukad will never forget. I have done stuff like this before in the past where, I would fade demist in Mist Cave. Not expecting to find it there. Didn't even know that no free key items was on. And ended up losing a race pretty badly as a result of that. And after that happened, I never forgot ever again, to check that location or to check to see whether free cans are on or not.
Well, these sorts of mistakes happen to a lot of people. Frankly, it's nowhere near as bad as one of my signature moves has been to fade Cave Antlion somewhat intentionally, and then by the end of the scene forget I faded it. So it's like, well, there's one check left. I haven't found darkness, and I don't remember where I haven't been. A nice punchy set of dark imps are awaiting MaggieTheKatt up in the cave value area, but a new bell for Rydia should make this fight pretty free.
This fight is effectively free going forward. Dark imps just punch. They don't do anything else. I expect by the end of this fight, everyone else will be dead, except for Rydia, who cannot possibly die. So a number of Angry Dragon Gods coming out, and at least Sid will get the XP in addition to Rydia.
Yep, again, that benefit is Sea Hero. Meanwhile, we will get a chance to see our 7th character with the Lunar Dais coming up. But I think we've seen all the characters except for the one here at the Dais. Actually, no, we're missing 4. We haven't seen the one in the Dais, the one in Dwarf Castle, the one at the end of the Giant, and whoever is gated by the package.
All correct. So someone is hiding there. Someone new. Could be a Rosa. Could be an Edward. Can't be a Fu. Nerukad's taken round 2 against these guards here. I believe has Bahamut this time around. So actually can get through this fight a whole lot easier than during his previous attempt.
Well, I believe he's got Protect Rings on there too. I don't think this could be bad. Palom, again, trying to steal the spotlight on this seed. He is, for as much as I said negative about him earlier, coming through today.
Just a silver apple from these Dark Imps. Unfortunately, not getting a replacement Moonveil, but maybe we'll get that from lower in the LST. But for now, that is another objective done for MaggieTheKatt. Objective number 2, completing Gay Bahamut. Putting her at 3 objectives for tonight.
Well, again, getting back to one of the interesting things about this flag set, several of the required objectives in this will not have key items behind them. We specifically do not get key items on the moon or from summon bosses. So it's kind of interesting that you do these high difficulty checks where there's lots of hit points and lots of work to get through them, and what you get handed is an apple for your trouble.
And it's a trendy move to just sell the apple. I actually like using them, especially on these lower HP characters like Rydia and Palom. Can definitely go a long way.
All right, well, Maggie taking a brief rest on the free Whale Inn, and on her way to another interesting check. Hopefully, I think at this stage it's going to be just checking for objectives. But there are a few places, and we are going to go, I think, to the Giant for real this time. And Nerukad completes his hook route.
Nerukad is underground, pushing through a very difficult hook route, and now has the opportunity to make up a bit of time on Maggie. Has a lot of checks available to him, but has a lot of power as
well. To answer a question from chat, as in entirety, Maggie 5 characters actually has only seen the 4 characters she has. She has not seen that Porum, who was only existing on the hook route, and of course we've only seen Cecil so far up on Zot. And then there's one other mystery character who none of us have seen at all. Well, again, there are a couple of things, particularly with a lack of White Mage, and I'm not sure I've even seen Cure 3 potions for Maggie either. Dark Knight Cecil here could be a bit of a problem.
Dark Knight Cecil is almost insurmountable for Maggie in this situation. Maybe possible at the 65k spot if you happen to have Asura and roll Cure 3, Cure 4 quite a bit. I don't think that DKC is going to hit for more than, I want to say, 400 to 600. May not be feasible, however. I guess we're going to find out.
There's a lot of hit points that have to be chewed through in this fight, and instead we have the other guard situation, which is pretty ideal for this spot, other than the lack of experience, because the head guard will almost certainly get away.
Which is perfectly fine. I think Maggie is okay with that. Just wants to get through this giant check, take what XP that they can get, and both Titan, I think Titan, but Bahamut and Quake will really make these soldiers just go away very quickly.
Well, Nerukad on his way straight to the Fey March.
Oh, it was a bottom. Okay. I'm also very impressed by Palos Grace here, doing about 5,000 damage each. That kid's definitely wearing some very good equipment.
Well, Pal really is trying to steal the show. I guess justify the lack of hype. I guess to overcome the lack of hype around him.
Mm.
But I've always loved the Quack Kid, so I'm happy to see him get his moment in the sun here.
We are not killing that officer. It's about to take off. That's fine. We are through the first boss up here on the giant. As long as the second boss isn't some evil brick wall, not actually evil wall because we've seen him already, but feasible, possible for Maggie to get through, that will be objective number 4 for her.
You know, and I think with this giant, we may have the rare seed where we see Palom pushing his way up to nuke. In this flag set, we don't typically see that with the Eno experience and the fact we don't have to fight.
Yeah, we are also getting dangerously close to Rydia nuke levels. We're only 6 levels away for that Rydia. If this is 300,000 XP, we may be just like 1 or 2 levels away, and getting nuke is, quite the achievement on this flag set. Hey, that's quite doable.
Especially with a Blarg and Quake in your hands. This is if there could not have been a better giant setup for this party.
The funny thing is, if this Calbrena was at the previous location, not even Quad 9s and all the dolls would actually get you through that fight. Those dolls in the back, the blue ones, would have more than 10,000 HP each.
Ask me that particular bit of trivia. Thankfully,
it's like it's one of those things that you never forget after it happens to you.
No, and sometimes that burnt hand teaches you quite a few things. But that being said, it's never fun to go through.
All right, what character are we getting for Maggie? Will we finally fill out our party?
Come on.
Or will it be another Dupe Yang? Could be a Dupe Yang. Yang, Edward.
Our last character of the seed is Edward. He is sadly the fastest character in the seed.
We do have a spoon, I guess.
We do, but most of the party is leveled and Edward is not. He is
going
to be even more glass cannonish than usual.
That just means he's going to level quickly.
That is true. Of course, if you have 5 characters in party and someone is more than 5 levels behind the median in levels, they'll be getting an experience doubler, and it'll be quad experience for Edward due to the 10 key item bonus as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Maggie's through the giant, and we technically have the ability to finish the game. However, there is that pesky Ogopogo and no healing in this party.
Looks like Maggie may be opting to do that Ogopogo before going down to do that boss at the Masamune altar, which is a valid and I think intelligent play. We don't have exit, unfortunately, so if you do go down and do that Masamune altar first, unfortunately, you're going to have to warp all the way out of the LST, which takes a while. But may also be doing a bit of shopping for that Edward, too.
Well, Maggie, as was pointed out by our esteemed tracker, did find some Cure 3 potions, but opted not to take them earlier. And so I think Maggie's currently racking her brain trying to remember exactly where those were. It's one of the trickier things about this flag set, because you do see an awful lot of things while you're out shopping.
Yeah, it definitely tests your memory throughout the course of the seed. I mean, there have been times where I've lost like a minute and a half trying to remember where the Avenger was for sale. Like, it was in Agar. No, it was in Ordeals, and the entire time was in Crepo. Like, how did I mess that up? But, it happens.
I like the value play over on Nerukad's side, buying that ribbon. It, again, is something that just pays off, particularly, once again, Golbez is still missing in action. He could be down there at that Masamune altar, and that is a fairly fast fight. Not to mention some pretty high magic power.
Mm-hmm. It is time for Maggie to tackle this Nope Noodle once again down here in the Fey March. Has a lot more level this time after completing not just the giant, but also K value. May have a much easier time this time around.
Well, Nerukad electing to take the Dark Elf, and why not? I think he's power to do it.
That is an interesting purchase over on Maggie's side. Buying the Sylph Summoned Definitely has some use. It, for example, is a great spell to use against the CPU. Pierces a wall, which CPU will normally put on it, and will heal your party throughout, so you don't have to worry about the constant meteors coming out. I wonder how much it's going to heal for that Ogopogo, however, because any summon or any magic spell is going to counter with Blaze, which is 20% of your HP.
Yeah, and Ogo is generally not too friendly on that sort of check. Rydia just absolutely murdering with that Bahamut summon. But we'll see. I do not remember if Nerukad had picked up those Artemis. Oh, he did receive Artemis arrows earlier. He got them as part of one of the checks that we made. But electing to try and blink through the fight here instead.
All right, Ogopogo, I've come to bargain. Want to see Yang take nearly 2,000 damage?
Young's a big boy. He can handle it.
Want to see Edward take 2,500 damage? Because he just did. Ogopogo's not pulling his punches.
No, this is an extremely unpleasant fight. There's no way around it. And I don't think Ogo's going to like this Bahamut very much either.
Not so much that he countered with Blade, unfortunately. This is a bit dangerous. Palom had a Quake queued up right now as well. That will trigger another Blade counter and put all of our characters at very critical HP.
Meanwhile, Nerukad perseveres in his fight against the Dark Elf, gets Rydia back up from a nasty hit, and gets Blarg summoned, and gets pretty close. I think that one more hit's going to tip over the Dark Elf here. Come on, Sid, you can hit better than that.
Maggie resets out of that Ogopogo, decides to go elsewhere. Maybe search for a Baron Key or a Legend Sword behind that Dwarf Castle. By the looks of it, we actually haven't done this check yet.
Have we seen any? Do we have anything left other than the two checks and the Baron, whatever's behind that Baron Key?
You know, I'm looking at exactly one key item that is in Maggie's inventory and not Nerukad's. It is an instrument. It makes noise. It's a slow check, and a lot of people like to fade it. But I think I saw a XenoCat in chat earlier, and that may cause some excitement for chat as well if Maggie wants to go in that direction.
I tell you what, that fade of Dwarf Castle by Maggie is looking smarter. If you come here at the early levels they have underground, this Dark Knight Cecil fight could be really unpleasant, especially without having a white mage. But with everything else in hand in the levels, this is not going to be a problem now.
DKC kind of difficult here when you have 1,000 HP on your Yang and Sid. Not difficult at all when they can take like 10 of these dark waves. Edward, however, can take one.
Well, Nerukad prepping for what we unfortunately know is going to be bad news about that Sparkle. I think the hope was generally Wyvern would be here and there'd be fun times had with Hard.
And good point from Rexroll in chat. Knowing that DKC was here at Dwarf 1 means DKC is not at the Masamune altar. At this point, I'm trying to think of what could really be a showstopper at that location.
Kainatsu.
And we've got Thor Rage. We'll be fine. Hey, a Porum. Bye, Edward. Bye, Porum.
Bye, Porum. Healing is for the weak.
Yes.
Well, Odin doesn't like lightning, but I bet you he likes Bahamut even less.
Summon, meet summon.
There's a reason people are running out to buy Bahamut, and
yeah, Bahamut's kind of like the hottest toy of the season. I mean, it's hard to get one around Christmas. Everyone wants one. Every Rydia wants one. Right. Luckily, there's a large supply of them over in Basidia.
All right, Rybon, are we going to have the double objective value stuck behind Dwarf Castle?
No. I'm going to say Baron Key. Just Baron Key. Legend Sword may be behind Baron Key, or maybe behind that Twin Harp, but no way we get double, right? There's no way we're that lucky. I think Crystal and Baron Key.
I think we're looking at like a little better than 1 in 4. There's one of them.
Remembering the Warp Witch. Good on Maggie. Legend Sword, is that it? No,
Crystal.
It is a crystal. I think I called that, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, and that tells us that Legend Sword is either behind that Baron Key or behind the Harp. Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen everything else. Nerukad discovers that the Ogo is a out like Maggie. He actually has exit to take advantage of.
Yeah, I don't believe Maggie will be back to bargain with that Ogo Pogo. We found greener pastures, better things to do. We're gonna go take on this barren castle, liberate it, and pop quiz Mr. Telgrant. Who was our starting boss?
I believe it's a Mom Bomb.
You are correct.
Again, one of those things you can check on. If you'd also been paying attention on Nerukad's side, you that Odin was coming. Nerukad gonna go take this Dark Knight Cecil. I think he'll be through here, but I think it's gonna be a little trickier fight than what Maggie had here.
Yes, unfortunately, I don't believe Sid or Yang over on Nerukad's side is rocking about 4,000 HP right now. So this will be a tricky fight. May take 2 Bahamut's, may take a lot of Cure 2s being tossed on that little girl to get through this.
Well, he does have a white mage that can actually heal the party the old-fashioned way.
I question, though, whether this white mage will be one-shot by a dark wave here.
That's a pretty solid hit from Young there.
It looks like she's okay.
And Palm just trying to keep the white mage up and running. Here comes the Bahamut summon. That's good news here.
All right, that's 1. Oh, we may not need more than 1.
Yeah, Rydia is looking pretty buff there. Even just 600 hit points, that little girl is slinging quite a bit of damage.
Well, that is a great play for Nerukad. We'll get not 1 but 2 key items from this Dwarf Castle check, getting him closer to his 10 key items as well. I think pushing him all the way to 7.
Well, and also is going to lead him to a very natural. That is going to be progression. So that's a very good thing. In the meantime, Odin is present, and he mulls it over a second and decides 7,000 Bahamut against Dark Knight Cecil is probably going to be pretty fun here too. And he's not wrong.
Well, Bahamut is, as mentioned earlier, a tool that fixes many problems.
Those Rydias are both rocking pretty hard. I mean, that's for all the levels that MaggieTheKatt's Rydia has picked up on top of it. It's only 1,000 extra damage. Again, why Rydia is such a powerful character in this flag seed. I'm sorry, Palom. I love you to death, and you're way when you run, but Rydia rules this flag set.
But we're so close. I don't think we're going to make it, though. We're about 3 levels off from Nukon Rydia for Maggie. Probably not going to make it because I think even Mothwing Altar won't be enough XP. So that elusive Nukon potion party is going to probably elude us 1 more seed.
Well, Dr. Luge and the Baonabs are hanging out today, and they are probably going to get a chance to talk a tiny bit. Maybe not. We'll see. Dr. Luge, known for a lot of by a pretty weak combat to follow it up, this should be no problem.
No, you don't understand. Now it's time for the real fight. Maybe.
Well, we'll see. I prefer the real poison walk afterward.
Oh, never mind. We still have that Thunderclaw on.
Of course, Rybon, doing my math here raises an interest. This is MaggieTheKatt's 37th key item check.
And finding a Cecil as well. But yes, 37th. That leaves precisely 1, I believe.
Well, and if the Legend Sword isn't here, do you go to Harp and pick it up?
It would take a longer amount of time, I think, to go do Harp, and then do Forge rather than just walk down and do the Moth Immune altar. And at this point, with the amount of power you have on your team, I'd rather just go do Moth Immune. Plus, it's more fun.
Oh yeah, that's true. Well, plus you're just now starting to get Spoonward online.
Yeah, let him, go out there flex a little bit. But this could just be Legend Sword, and we are done with the seed. It is a Legend Sword.
Legend Sword. All right, well, I think that Maggie is going to find out what Forge is for and the seed.
Yep, that was objective number 5 for Maggie, liberating Baron Castle. And here comes objective number 6, forging, and at least we'll get a peek of what Sid's Super Smith is. We just won't be able to equip it.
Well, we now just have to hope that Maggie has the wherewithal to rob Kokol on the way out.
Crime doesn't pay, Mr. Tallgrad.
I beg to differ. There's gold sitting on that shelf that you can take without any punishment whatsoever.
Stealing is wrong. Don't steal from the old man.
So what do you do with Edge and Eblan Castle these days?
I use the Assassin Dagger. A Fiery Hammer. Hey, we can cast Nuke with that. If we can equip it.
We did get to nuke this seed.
Aha. And the seed is over. 6-6 objectives complete. MaggieTheKatt is the victor tonight over Nerukad, taking a game for the Rusty Smooth.
Yep, with a time of 1 hour, 47 minutes, 48 seconds, and an almost complete check of the seed.
MaggieTheKatt definitely got their money's worth out of this seed.
Yeah, and well, hey, getting through the entire seed with this time is a pretty good feeling, just because the number of checks that you see yourself get through, and that also included clearing the giant. I am told that we are now also being enjoyed by tonight's winner, MaggieTheKatt. Maggie, GG.
Thank you.
So, what did you think of the seed? How did it go for you?
This was a trip. I haven't raced in a long, hot second, so this was quite a return back to the Free Enterprise community racing scene for me. I think that I cleared almost everything on accident.
I think I misspoke a minute ago. I think that there were 2 chests you didn't clear. You didn't grab the Mad Ogre chest down in the hook route, and you did not go up Zod.
That sounds correct. And
you did go. Yes, you didn't go up Zod. You also didn't do Harp. That was the other one.
Yeah. Because where was the Earth Crystal? Was it at Harp?
The Mad Ogre's on the hook chest.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about it when I was in Eblan Cave really early on to get the magma key, and I was like, if the Darkness Crystal is down here, it's just gone.
Well, so take us through kind of, I was really, really impressed with your routing once you hit the underworld. Just kind of take us through your thought process of how you approach the seed from that point.
Oh, thank you. So I try to look out for some kind of thunder or lightning-based weapon so I can do a really early tower play. So fortunately, I found that Thunderclaw like really early on. And, I think that doing the trapped chests in Lower Babel is like one of the quickest and easiest ways to get key items, as long as you have a weakness to hit the eyes. And so the routing just worked out really well key items wise. Like that tower was just loaded coming out of there with the Demist check and the Pan check and everything that I came out of there with.
Okay. Did it bother you at all not having a white mage in the seed?
Yeah, the Ogopogo fight, as you probably saw me go back to a couple of times, I was like, I don't know actually how to get through this. And I couldn't remember where Cure 3 potions were, because I don't usually pick up Cure 3 potions, at least early on. And then I was like, I'm not going to eat Cure 3 potions. And then I get to that Ogopogo fight, and I'm like, oh, this was a mistake. So yeah, not having the white mage hurt a little bit. And then when I was on the moon the first time, I did the Bahamut spot, and I was like, I can go down and do Ogopogo right now. And then I was like, wait, then I'm going to have to walk/work all the way out, and that's not going to be fun.
Did the lack of exit also influence your
A little bit. Not. I mean, I guess not too much. I don't use exit in too many other spots. I'm just trying to think of where else it would be useful. Sylph Cave, maybe a little bit. Early on, like Antlion Cave and some of the old world spots, but it's not. I don't think it's too bad there. So not a whole lot. It was mainly the moon was my biggest. That was my biggest like routing deviation based on the lack of exit, I think.
Well, your moon was actually one of the better plays I saw in the entire seed. The wherewithal to remember your moon veil, drop that right on Bridia, and just power through the fight. And we were actually kind of commenting on Palom kind of superheroing his way through the seed for you too, because he stepped up quite a few times today.
Yeah, thank you. That definitely that moon veil was a huge find. If you can find one of those, they usually come in really handy in this particular fight set, I think. So there were a few times, especially early on, where I felt like I was floundering a little bit. Like I forgot that Rudy had Bahamut a couple of times in some of the early fights. But I think I kind of pulled it together. Like I said, it's my first time racing in quite a while. So a few little places where I was like, oh, if you maybe saw me like going back and forth a little bit or resting when I didn't have to rest, that was mostly me just kind of trying to figure out what to do next. Because I think the seed threw me a few little loops as far as routing goes. That magma key being kind of deep in one of those chests and not an early find, and just a couple things like that. And then like I said, having to go to the moon and then not wanting to go all the way down to the lunar subterranean without exit. So there were a few times like that where I had to just take like 10 seconds and be like, what am I doing next?
Well, and you say you're rusty. There were some very, very big brain plays. I mean, finding the Titan on the front side of Hobbs was just absolutely brilliant and really helped you get rolling early.
Yeah, thank you. It's like as soon as I saw the gauntlet at Fabul, the vanilla gauntlet, but old gauntlet at Fabul, I was like, well, that's not that difficult, but it's going to be really difficult without an AoE. So I knew I wanted Rudia to get a few more MP before I went back there.
Well, Rybon, did you have any questions you wish to ask of our esteemed winner tonight?
Sure. Maggie, you made a lot of very intelligent plays tonight. I very much like that you headed down that Sylph Cave, despite being in go mode, having the Darkness Crystal in hand and so forth. It seemed like you were looking for a 10 key item, looking for additional levels, looking for more powers. Was that pretty much the play, trying to get to a more comfortable level to take on the Feymarch fights, the giant fights, and maybe eventually that Masanin altar?
Yeah, for sure. Usually if I get to go mode, especially kind of early on, I'll dive that Sylph pretty quickly to be able to get some, not only levels, especially levels is the main thing, but then if there happens to be, like in this case, I had half of Forge, so I was like, well, I can get some levels and pull out the other half of Forge, and then get another objective that would be easier than going all the way to like giant or whatever in this case. Then that's sort of my thinking in that case. And this was a really good setup to do Sylph as well, because just the way that my anchoring worked out, and having Rydia with the agility that she had, so that she was going really fast to be able to get the mute bells off, made it so that some of those fights were just really easy to get through.
Yeah, that was definitely a veteran move, throwing that assassin dagger on Rhea to speed her up and get her to the point where she can use those mute bells. So very, very well done on that. I had one more question as well. You ran this seed for the most part with the 4 characters. Was there any temptation on your part to go do dwarf, maybe check the LFT diet to try to find a 5th character, or were you just like, these 4 are enough, I'm just gonna go finish?
So I was basically playing Schrodinger's Cecil through this entire seed, because as soon as I exited out of Ordeal, like I save scummed out of Ordeals, I was like, oh, there's a Cecil somewhere in this seed, and he's not going to be Paladin when I get him. So as long as I don't check characters and I don't get Cecil, there can't be a Cecil that I have missed. So that was basically what I was doing, is I was trying to not find Cecil so I wouldn't feel bad about not having a Paladin Cecil on my party.
Well, you weren't wrong. There is a Cecil in the seed.
Yep. found him
Okay,
way at the
you're
end,
doing
and I was like, well, that's way too late for that.
Well, despite only having 4 characters, you leverage them all very well. As Tallgrad said on top, that 1-2 punch of Palom and Iridia carried you through a lot of very difficult fights. Unfortunately, that Ogopogo ended up being a little too much, but you found a way around it. You're like, Ogopogo, I'm back to bargain. And then you're like, never mind, I'm going to go find a Barrington instead. And that was the right play. That was
Yeah.
the right Ogopogo there. It's no fun.
I have definitely learned in practicing a little bit since I've come back with this flag set especially to not bang my head against the same fight more than once or twice. If I get stuck somewhere, then I have to just move on. And if that's going to do another check or going to pop open some chests and get levels or whatever it is, I need to like not just keep doing the same fight over and over again, because that just doesn't make progress, and there's other ways to make progress. So yeah, I went down and I couldn't really remember what Ogopogo countered summons and even black magic with, and so I was like, can I get through it with black magic even if I have Rydia not summon, or do something like maybe can find Cure 3 potions and she could throw potions while Palom throws out quakes. And then I saw that he was going to counter everything with the blaze, and I was like, no, never mind. We're leaving.
Yep. There's only so many checks left. Let me go do those.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
I had one very final question. So your final move, your final objective was to forge. You got that fiery hammer. How disappointed were you that you weren't actually able to use it?
I'm always disappointed with Forge because when it's right at the end, because I always get like half of it right at the beginning, and I'm always excited because I'm like, oh, let me just get the other half of it, and then I'll be able to use this weapon, and it'll be so cool. And then I never get the other half of it until right at the end. So I'm disappointed, but also like that's just part of the course for the way that these seeds have been going for me in my practice the last few days. So I don't even know. I think I heard y'all say right before I hopped in that a fiery hammer can use, or you can use it to cast nuke, and I didn't even know that. So I guess once again, if I don't know about it, it doesn't hurt me.
But yeah, if you use Fiery Hammer as it will do a single target nuke cast, it's not quite as good as your casters would normally throw off there, but particularly in the early game, it can be very, very fun.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it would be, yeah. So, I mean, it's always nice to be able to forge early, but if you can't, then, like, I was looking for a good weapon for Sid for the whole seed, too. I was like, can I get Ogre Axe or a Rune Axe or even a Poison Axe? No, there were no axes anywhere, so I was stuck with that bow and arrows, and they worked out pretty good. The Artemis arrows were good for a couple of the fights, but I just couldn't find what I thought was going to be a better weapon for Sid for the entire seed, so I kept hoping for the Forge, and then the Forge came right again.
And he's coming. So I am pretty much out of questions. Do you have anything left for our winner tonight, Tallgrad?
I don't. Do you have any final thoughts, Maggie, or what you have planned for the rest of the tournament?
Well, I think that our motto going into this for my team was to come back and have fun. I think everybody on my team has kind of been away from the community for a while, like I have, and we wanted to just come back and get reacquainted with each other and the community and the game, and we have been doing that and having a blast, to be honest. So I really appreciate my team, and I really appreciate all of y'all for commentating and for tracking and for restreaming, and all of the admin for putting on a tournament. And I am looking forward to watching and participating in the rest of the races for the rest of the tournament.
Well, as somebody who got involved with the community before, after your absence had begun, it's really neat to see somebody who's been showing up in the workshop helpers for so long, and we're all happy to have you back racing again.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I am looking forward to hopefully working with all of you guys on some future races.
That's good.
All right. Well, thank you all so much, and good luck to Nerukad on the rest of the seed. I will say it was not an easy one, so I will leave it over to the rest of you for the rest of the seed.
Thank you very much. With a time of 1:47.48, your winner, MaggieTheKatt.
Thanks a lot, Maggie.
Thank you.
All right, so catching up a bit with Nerukad, while we were talking with Maggie, Nerukad has found the Baron Key, completed that, gotten the Forge and the Fiery Hammer on it, and making his way up to the D-Mist on top of Tower. Hopefully this is going to very quickly lead to the Darkness Crystal.
Yes, I don't know if he has picked up the tower key yet, but that is actually in the next trap chest here in the lower tower. So he'll be able to complete all those checks, get the pan, I think, which is also at the top of the tower too. And we should see him with 10 key items pretty soon, I believe.
Well, and as long as he remembers to turn in his D-Mist, we will be in go mode very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as Maggie mentioned, this was a this seed made you work for it a bit. You had to go a little bit everywhere.
Yeah, this seed was a doozy. Ogopogo at Leviathan is never a fun time. Fortunately, the giant is doable, and I wonder if Nerukad's going to let us take a look over at the Mothmune altar, potentially see what is waiting for us there that we never actually got to see just yet.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, that pool of bosses is starting to come down right now, and going through my list of who we've seen and who may or may not be simple to deal with there, a lot of the really no-problem bosses are out of the pool. So there's the possibility for a few unpleasant things to be up there, though. I think the Dark Knight Cecil's the absolute worst, and I'm happy that he's not going to be there.
Yeah, I'm going to call my shot right now and just say that Baigen's waiting for us down there.
Well, yeah, like I said, speaking of bosses who are not necessarily pleasant, although this is a party that is not terribly set up, not terrible in how it's set up to do Baigen. The two big area castings that can get around his wall are very, very handy dealing with him and his arms.
Mm-hmm. Little concern here, though. Nerukad, I believe, found that tower key, came straight down here. I don't think it's peaked the top of tower yet, which is our D-Mist, holding not just a pan, but also holding the darkness crystal. Looks like we're going back up good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, at this stage, it's really... you can't really afford to orphan a check at this point. You kind of have to be as thorough as you can everywhere you go. But I think, this may be one of those cases where it would be preferable to go do the giant before you do anything else again, just especially knowing what we know that the bosses are going to be fairly straightforward there.
Mm-hmm. Sadly, diminished XP up there, though. Those Calcabrina, for example, not giving us 300,000 XP we are accustomed to getting from that spot, but, still better than nothing.
Well, I think with the experience that Nerukad's going to have after having done this D-Mist, he's going to be capable of handling just about anything else the seed can throw at him.
Just about, yes.
And I'll say just about. There's a couple things in that Mazamune altar that could be unpleasant. But Dark Imp fight should be fine.
It should be fine. I don't recall, though, did Nerukad happen to find that moon veil that Maggie used on the Dark Imps?
I don't remember where that came from. Was that a Sheila turn-in?
I'm not sure if it was a Sheila turn-in or if it was potentially a Sylph trap. Sheila 2. Okay, so that will be coming shortly after this. Thank you to our tracker, Chuck Ultra, for remembering that, which I didn't know.
Yeah, Chuck has been on it quite a bit tonight, not just with the actual objective and item tracking, but also with just paying attention to what's going on with the runners. Of course, again, Chuck and Eskren have been doing all the hard work, and you and I just get to sit here and talk about free enterprise for a couple hours.
Yeah. Just a nice little break for us.
Well, interesting to see the D-Mist up here. To tell you the truth, I actually love seeing the D-Mist thing in here as opposed to the Edward free item. I think it's one of the more creative things about free enterprise, and actually adds some interesting depth to it because it puts this boss hunt in here into a flag set where you wouldn't always see it.
Yeah, there's been a number of tournaments where D-Mist wasn't really a factor per se. That key items were effectively free from bedward. I think ZD5 was like that, correct?
I think Adamant Cup was that way too. But again, I think that the interesting thing about this Potion Party flag set was that it was a way to utilize some typically see, because this is the first tournament I believe with win game. So, as opposed to having that always in the back of your mind that the Zeromus fight is coming, I need to get these levels, I need to have this specific setup to deal with him, you could just, hey, how can I blaze through that? And it actually couples really nicely then with the no experience flag.
It does. Pan for Nerukad, and eventually we'll turn Wittieth Mom as well and get that darkness crystal So we're waxing poetic here about Potion Party, but notably, we're 2 weeks in. I didn't even know you could walk all the way back here, by the way. We're 2 weeks into this Potion Party segment of the tournament, but Moonveil Mixer is coming up in just a couple of weeks. Are you looking forward to that flag set, and if so, what portions of it?
Moonveil Mixer is this interesting flag set that is a mishmash of several previous tournaments together, and it actually aligns a little bit more closely with what I like to race and I like to play. So I'm actually really thrilled about that, to be doing an actual Sea Hero tournament, but with all these other fun things turned on. The Sea Hero is probably the thing I'm most excited about, but I love that. I love that I believe Adamant Armors are turned on in that flag set. What I am a little concerned about is I have been pretty exclusively doing Potion Party for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and I kind of need to figure out how I'm going to shift gears into that other flag set, because I'm so hardwired to do this flag set at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting shift. A lot of us have been practicing either in asyncs and pickup races, or even other, teams just practicing together. Potion Party for like the last month or even 2, because these flags were in testing and publicly available for a while. It's going to be kind of like a shock to the system to go back to potentially not just shopping, but getting items out of treasure chests, killing the Romis at the end of a seed, having adamant armors available to you. It's just a huge shift, and I'm kind of looking forward to it, not just because I like a more traditional flag set sometimes, but also it's just a different flavor of free enterprise that, at least for me, I haven't played in a couple months.
Well, and it's kind of weird, because I think that there has been that sole focus on Potion Party. That's only half of the tournament. There's a full backside of the tournament with 4 weeks coming, where it's going to be all Moonveil Mixed, and the spotlight and everything's going to shift, and it's going to be kind of interesting, just because it's been such I think a lot of the older returning runners that may not play free enterprise as often, that just show up around tournament time, may have been a bit surprised by this flag set, and you're going to see this sudden surge with them when the Moonveil Mixer stuff starts up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely a shock to the system for many people, and probably something a little more familiar for a lot of the returning runners, as you stated. And also, it's not just we have this back half of the tournament with Moonveil Mixer, but when we do eventually get to the playoffs, which will be weeks 9 and 10, or I guess 10 and 11, because we're taking week 9 off to give racers a little bit of rest after 8 weeks of straight racing, then both flag sets come into play. In the playoffs, both Potion Party and Moonveil Mixer will be played simultaneously. 2 races of one flag set and 1 race of the other. And at that point, a lot of strategy comes into your matchups. One team, potentially the one that higher seed, will be able to determine which players play which flag set. And if you have, a great player on your team who excelled at Potion Party, you can use that information to your advantage to try to get an advantage over the team that you're competing against that week.
Yeah, and to be honest, one of my favorite things about this tournament setup is the team format. I love that because one of the scariest things in playing a tournament like this, particularly as a younger player, is that you're going to sit down and you're going to draw somebody like Martin Broadcloak, or dare I say a Rybon, who is the absolute pinnacle of the community as far as competitiveness, and here you are kind of learning the things. And with this setup, it's designed to help pair players of similar skill levels, and to give it so you not only have interesting races, but meaningful, interesting races, because these will count toward the teams getting their match victories.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Maggie taking victory each night, for example, is big for the Rusty Spoons. I mean, whether it's her winning or her teammates, Korg or Zilch or anyone else on the Rusty Spoons winning, all of those wins count for the actual match point at the end of the weekend. They'll determine whether your team makes it to the playoffs or not. So Maggie, definitely a valued member of the Spoons.
Well, and that's the fun thing. Like I mentioned, things that I love about these tournaments is the opportunities to make friends, and this has been really fun for building a team on my end. At least I'm hoping you're having a similar experience, and I hope that our runners are having that same experience. I had something really similar during Adamant Cup. I just loved the guys over in my group. and it was a great experience. And it's really nice also because it pulls you into the community. It helps you get involved with people, and you kind of go, hey, you're somebody that I know. Let's work together. Let's see what we can do to get better. Let's have fun playing together.
Yeah, that was a good time during Anima Cup as well. I believe you were in Aegis Shield, right?
Yes, I was on Team Aegis Shield with, I believe, Nightdew, Vitasia, Elven Sorrow, Zyrak, and Beauty and Discovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and me on Heroine Robe as well. I mean, it was a great time in Anime Cup. You got a little closer to the people in your group, even though you're competing against each other, and to the point where when we did get to brackets, I was still rooting for the other person that got out of my particular group, for example. And I'm sure you were rooting for the people out of Aegis Shield who made it into the brackets.
Oh, totally. All right, we are with Nerukad making our way up to turn in the pan. All that Moonveil, which could be going to be here as well. And we'll see if Nerukad remembers to go turn into the Iridia's mother and pick up his demist freebie.
Mm-hmm. Geez, I don't remember what Sheila 1 was. Oh, a Lucky Key. Okay. How many cams are we at? 1, 2, 4,
more
7.
Than 10.
We're well up for more than 10. Great time to grind if you need to grind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the very least, yeah, with that Moonveil in hand, those DMs are free. So up to Nerukad. Do you want to do that Giant? Do you want to do Masamune Altar? Or do you want to take another shot at that Ogre Moonveil?
Yep. Well, there are options. It's nice to kind of have the end of the seat up here, just because I think that once that Darkness Crystal's in hand, Nerukad's in good shape, and I think we are headed for Sylph Cave.
Apparently may want more levels, or just may think the Darkness Crystal is here. Either way, hopefully we'll remember that Iridia's mom is waiting with the Darkness Crystal in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this will Nerukad may just not also feel great about tell that that's imminent for what's there. I think this is some of the last couple checks that he'll have left to do.
Yeah.
Quack Kid being placed online.
With a ribbon in hand, protecting that Quack Kid in the case of a Morbull or anything like that may try to toad him, or even a Toad Lady with a large number of Toad that will try to interrupt that Quake cast. So good use of that particular item on Nerukad's side. It is rough to do the Sylph Cave without float. It is definitely sapping your HP just walking around, maneuvering around here.
Well, I think we saw Maggie in here who had a pretty good stack of Cure 2 potions when she came in and was just about out when it was over.
Yeah. Good news is Porum at level 36, maybe learning float pretty soon. It may only take like 1 or 2 trap chests.
Yep. Well, I'm trying to remember the Twin Harp is in here, and I think that's it. If I remember right, the Sand Ruby is going to be... Wait, the Spoon is down here too, isn't it?
I don't believe so. The Spoon was behind the last arm up on the
You're right. And then the Sand Ruby was up in the Lunar Path.
I believe so. So yeah, just a Twin Harp to find here, and a whole lot of Excalibur Crystal Swords.
Yeah, and may make Nerukad wonder about the Cecil. But it's one of those things where you make the decision at the time for best on the information you have.
Mm-hmm. Nice chunk of 30k XP for Nerukad. Definitely getting not just his Black Mage online, but also that White Mage and Porum. Potentially Ogopogo may be within reach.
Yeah, that could be pretty good. All right, well, folks, I think we will be moving over to watch Nerukad finish the seed. So if you stay with us and check it out, that'd be absolutely fantastic. I do want to mention that we have several races coming up tomorrow. We are in the absolute midst of the Eblan Elixir tournament, and there's going to be lots of great things. And I can tell you that, among other things, tomorrow you'll be able to see J-Mac, the Librarian, versus It's Spelled Aerith at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and then at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow is going to be Wind Fox versus Firebird Lover. So, should be some great matches. I'd keep your eyes open. There may be a few more popping up, and as we get closer to the weekend, even more fun things are going to be happening. So, Rybon, any final thoughts?
Just GG's to MaggieTheKatt for their victory tonight. GG's to Nerukad for continuing on the seed. I'm sure he'll be done very shortly. And just want to say thank you to you, Tall Grant, to Chuck Ultra, and S Grunt for being with me here tonight. It was a great time, and I very much enjoyed commentary.
All right, and two last notes. It will be emote to get over to Cad's chats. That this race, there may be some people you come across out in the community who haven't seen it and may want to watch it. So wait 48 hours before you spoil it to anybody who may not have seen it. Thank you guys very much. I hope you all have a wonderful night.